It's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, so,
Welcome, everybody.
that's what
We have someone needs to turn.
there you go.
Because we have a little bit of an echo somewhere. Thank you, Vice Chair Kelly. This room looks a little different, right? I came in and said, I'm not sure how it feels like when everyone sits at the same chair at the dinner table and then someone sits in the wrong chair, you feel a little off, or like you go to the Costco that's not your own and it's flipped and it just all feels wrong. It feels a little, really have to get used to this, but
This doesn't feel wrong, does it?
appreciate our staff for helping us try something new. Not wrong, but not the same. So we're glad you're all here. Thanks for coming to the Finance Committee today. I read a joke on a billboard on my drive up here. It was, how do you make a cheeseburger sad? Any guesses?
Got nothing.
You put blue cheese on it. All right, let's go ahead and start with our staff introductions. We have Camille Clark and Melissa Holt. I don't think I'm saying that right because it's spelled. Is that right? Okay, great. Camille.
Yeah,
Good
it's
morning.
Melissa. It's my mother tortured me.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm saying it right then. We'll go ahead and start with Camille Clark to introduce, and then Melissa, then we'll have you introduce after Camille. Does that sound great?
Yes, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Camille Clark, and I am a purchasing agent within the USBE purchasing team. My role is inclusive of leading and assisting with a range of procurement activities, from competitive solicitations like RFPs and bids to sole sources and small purchases. I also assist with drafting, reviewing, and negotiating contracts that are issued by USBE. I also assist with contributing guidance materials and training. There's a lot. The procurement world is really big, so that's just a brief summary. But a little bit about me: I've actually been with the state of Utah for 11 years, and I have been with a couple of different state agencies. I've been with the Office of Recovery Services. I've worked for the Department of Workforce Services, and more recently, I was with the state of purchasing and general services as well. So I'm very happy to be here. And then one of the things that's unique about me is that, not necessarily unique, but I love to garden. And then I love all things creepy crawly. So I love spiders and stuff like that. But yes, lovely to meet you and happy to be here.
That certainly is unique.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make Camille larger on the screen so we can see her? Is that possible? Who's driving today? Is it possible? That's okay. You just look so tiny. I'll just have to go in and play that Who's Who game on the website where you're trying to guess which name goes with which person. Okay, thanks so much, Camille. Melissa.
Hi, and I am Melissa Holt. I am also a purchasing agent with the state board, and I am in the same department as Camille, so there'll be a little bit of overlap in some of our duties that we do and that you've just heard from her. And I do the same, which is I am responsible for interagency agreements, state contract procurements to ensure that those align with the vendor contracts. We do manage the professional services solicitations. We do the sole source postings, and we also do the contract amendments. In addition to that, we do a lot of training with the staff to help them understand the procurement process and to ensure that they have the resources that they need to initiate an RQSE. And an RQSE is the initial document that's required to request all procurement that come through our department. We set up vendor payments. We set up vendors so that they have the accounts for payments for the finance department. We assist in managing the USBE Verizon accounts. We process all conference and membership payments, as well as review facility agreements to ensure that those terms and conditions on those facility agreements don't have any conflicts with any of ours. So as you see, we have a very busy department that we have, and to give you kind of an ending quantifying measure of some of those tasks that we did last year, is that we processed probably over 2,500 of those requests last year, either, variety from the RFPs to the contracts, to small purchases, to the venue agreements, to vendor setups. And the last thing about me is I live part-time in St. George and I have a home in St. George and a home in South Ogden. That allows me to enjoy my favorite activity, which is golfing. And I just really enjoy that. Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you. It's so nice to meet you. Finance committee, you don't think it's just finance. We've got purchasing departments. We've got data and statistics. That's on top of just budgeting and finance and accounting,
Yes.
and all of the many things that we do. So thank you to our staff for keeping the wheels on the bus, so to speak. Appreciate you both for being here. And I see, is there only one other person online today? Is that Todd Hopper? I see the granite icon, so I think that is Todd Hopper. And welcome to all of you who are here in person. It's nice to see you. I was giving Member Baucus a minute before we introduce ourselves, but let's go ahead and have board member introductions real quick, and we'll get her in when she comes.
Hi, Matt Hymas, I'm in the finance team. I represent Julia and east west side of Sullivan County, west side of Utah County. Happy to be here.
And is the chair of our entire board for those listening online. Cindy Davis, chair of this finance committee, and represent urban Utah County and the southern part of Salt Lake County.
I am Cole Kelly. I am vice chair of the finance committee. Recently elected board member, so took office in January. But I represent District 12, which is a funny area, but it's Orem, Vineyard, Linden, then Wasatch County, Duchesne County, Uinta County, and Daggett County. So
I'm Randy Booth, representing District 13, which is Nemo School District and Provo City School District. Grateful to be representing those great students and their teachers.
Thank you so much. So glad to be with all of you. Do we have any public comment signed up? All right. We're just gonna move right along. Let's move to 2.2 R277-125 Small School District Capital Projects Amendment. Do we have I don't know if Greg or Sam.
Sam,
Which
Sam,
one of you is?
I'm happy. Do you want me to?
You want to just give we read the background. It's pretty straightforward, but you just give a quick synopsis for those listening.
So HB 462 from the 2025 legislative session created the Rural Schools Athletic Facilities Grant, which is up to $500,000 for each qualifying rural school to construct athletic facilities. So this money has previously been used for other one-time capital distributions like the Small Schools Capital Projects Fund and the Public Education Capital and Technology Funds that were a couple of years ago. So we thought this was the best place to put this. We have to one-time capital appropriations for small school districts, and basically just included this new program, the Rural School Athletic Facilities Program, on a similar timeline to what we have the Small School District Capital Projects Fund on. Most of those school districts are already familiar with that timeline, and happy to answer any questions about the role.
If you attended the Rural Schools Conference, you know that folks are eager to get this up and running. So any questions or comments from members? Jarvis?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I had a conversation at the Rural Schools Conference with Representative Oxier, and we were talking about the bill that was passed. One of the questions we had, and I mentioned this to you, Scott, and it's not in the rule, but maybe it's in the process. Is this like a competitive process or is it first come first served? And then on top of that, one of her concerns was prioritizing, especially for those with health and safety concerns, right? If you have roots coming up out of your track, you probably ought to prioritize that then she brought up like wrestling mats, right, that are have mold in them, things of this nature. So if that's not my rule, what would we, if we are going to incorporate something like that, where we see it?
Yes.
What's your
Please, Johnson.
When they submit the application, they ask for photos that demonstrate roots coming up through the track or mold on the mats or those types of things that will make it so we can make more of a decision on who, because it's limited. I mean, it is what it is and it's competitive. So if, you know, a picture tells 1,000 words or something, I don't know, something like that. So anyway, does that help, sir? Jared.
Sure, if I may. We do in the rule, 915, it says the superintendent shall review applications consistent with the priorities established in subsection 53F 10 303 3B, which is the new bill. And I'll read that section. It says, subject to appropriations, prioritize applications and distribute funds to an eligible school based on greatest need for program funds, financial feasibility of a sports facility construction or refurbishment project, and the potential benefit program funds may have on the community. So I mean, so like the greatest need for program funds, like Deputy Jones mentioned, is going to be demonstrated by roots coming up through the track or whatever safety issues may be.
So basically, we want a portfolio, right? We want like you know, here's the track as it is now, or here's the mats as they are now, or here's the demonstration, but it has to be emphasis on visual.
Great, thank you. That's in the application. Instruction.
Yeah, we'll make sure that clear that, you know, we really want you to submit visuals of what is going on. We also, these added changes on the you know, life cycle replacement and maintenance costs were things that I think people are interested in. Wow. I mean, if you don't know how much money you're gonna have to spend to maintain and sustain it, then, you know, it's not a very good investment, right? Because then you end up getting potentially trapped into, you know, we didn't know we had to spend this much to, I don't know.
Take care of it.
Take care of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Does that suffice?
That's it.
All right. Seeing no other hands. We have a motion on the floor. I don't know. You made a motion. You want to make that?
Yeah, you can just pull it up here. I move that the committee approves R277-125 small school district capital projects draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
I'm gonna need a second.
Someone said 2. Did we say draft 2?
Is that me what I know?
No, item 2.
Yeah, Kimmy's.
Yeah, we don't need the seconds in committee, so go ahead and vote, I guess. We've got a motion on the floor that the committee approves R277-125 small school district capital projects draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2.3. We are on some information items. Let's have Deputy Jones introduce. Thank you, Director Yuri.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, the information items. I think the first one we have is, so sometimes we'll do recognition, but you recognize the 2 employees first. So we're gonna go ahead and segue to the, is it Utah Grants first? I don't know. You know, recognized by the chair and staff, project managers. Then both Katrina and Rebecca will not be doing deep dives into the slides. They're going to do summaries. As many of you know, we try to update you on all the great work they're doing in the focus working groups. I just send those emails to you to try to give you context and things like that, but, they're basically tasked with summarizing and providing updates to the progress they've made since the last time. But we've missed it a couple of times, so it might go a little bit longer this time with the summary, but, if you recognize
And
control.
I would say, yeah, if anyone, I've slipped into a couple of the meetings, the functional team meetings, focus working group, I knew there was an F in there somewhere. They're really interesting, so any committee members that are interested in, getting down into the more weeds, since we're just doing a quick summary in our committee meetings, it's a great way to learn more. Go ahead, Katrina.
Thank you.
I should say Director Brinkley, am I remembering that right? Brinkley, yes.
Product owner, program manager for USIMS, whatever, I will respond to it all. It's all good. So just to give you a quick, we're gonna talk about, so we are officially into July 2026. And you'll notice we still have 2025 definition of done here. This is because we are finalizing the 2026 definition of done. You'll see those slides later on. I just wanted to give you an idea of the things that we're transferring over from 2025. We did have some items, some features that are transferring over. So each domain will talk about those as we discuss them. And as a reminder, the roadmap for USIMS is always available. There is a link on this slide. It is open to the public. So if you would like to see what our roadmap looks like, it is always there and always updated. And this is our financials slide. So to give you an idea, last year, we are currently using the 20 USIMS appropriation that we have spent 4.6 million of the 17.2 million that was appropriated to us. And all of the other funds are sitting at, I think, less than $1,000. There are minor things that our finance teams are working out to make sure that those get expended properly. Any questions on the finances? I'll just kind of smooth through these. Excellent.
Do you have enough to get to what done, the definition of done is?
So USIMS will plan to be going for probably quite a long time, and that would take a significant amount of funding beyond what we have. However, our long-term plan for USIMS is to eventually subsume all the systems that are currently running and all of the systems that are currently using the IT budget. And our plan is to move the FTEs who are supporting those systems over into USIMS for long-term sustainment. So we are actually working on that process right now. We have 2 FTEs currently, 3 FTE, 4 on USIMS, and are working on bringing some more on in October and some more on in March.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, and if there are no other questions, I will turn it over to Don Mooney, our product owner for the finance domain.
Thank you, Katrina. Just wanted to give a couple of updates with what's happening in the USIMS finance domain. With the big item that and the big success that the team has had right now is that we've been able to actually receive a complete set of pilot data from one of the LEA vendors. So actually evaluating that information right now. We've gone back and forth with that vendor to make sure that the data is correct. And we're actually at a point right now where we think the data matches up. So again, that's something the team is working on, and something that we're hoping to get with the other vendors here in the upcoming months. Actually, about every month we'll reach out to those vendors again. They're separate from USBE, so hey, kind of prod them a little bit to hey, what's going on? Get questions or what have you. So again, we're proving that okay, the finance API, it works. And then we've also implemented the FY 2026 counts and combinations, because that's obviously what we'll be using for a lot of the pilot submissions going forward. And then the big activity the team is working on right now is integrating our functionality with what's live with the educator team, so that we can have users in our production environment. We do have access in our test environment. Our finance API will stay in test, but we're going to make the accounts and the account combinations available in the production environment, have users log in and do that. So that's at a very high level, that is the summary of what's going on in the finance domain. Were there any questions that I could perhaps answer?
Under mitigation, how long will we be coordinating with a third party as the API, and when will USIMS become the API? Or is that the goal?
That is the goal. So we're hoping to over the course of the next 6 months complete the pilot submissions for all of the vendors. Again, we've got a pilot, parallel, go live approach. So we have each vendor is using one, has one LEA that they're piloting this piloting connectivity to USIMS with. As we confirm that functionality, then we can do parallel submissions. So using the existing functionality as our system of record, but doing the same thing in the finance API. And again, working with USB Finance, this is the approach that they agree on, and it's actually the approach that EdFi has recommended to us as well. That to have kind of that year of parallel submissions to ensure that the data that we're looking at is correct.
So do we have a target date for when we will become the API?
So it's kind of, think of it the way that the SIS vendors have to integrate with us. We're using an API as kind of the point between USIMS talking to the vendors, right? The finance does the same. We call them even FISs instead of SISs.
Right.
So that API is in, as he mentioned, it's in testing right now to ensure that their initial LEA can access data and verify it. That access has been done for one of the FIS vendors. Now I'm going to say SIS instead. And we're working on the other. I think there are 5, Dawn, is that correct?
7.
Okay. So we done 1 out of 7. We're working with all of the other vendors to ensure that that's working, and then we can go into parallel testing where everybody submits and gives us a year of data. So we're hoping to do that starting the next 6 months.
Or the year part, sorry.
Yeah.
Year part. And so then after the parallel is done, then we go into forward. So we're looking at a year and a half.
About.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Excellent. I am told I need to clarify something on the funding. So just as an FYI, we don't need significant amounts. It's just long-term sustainment of the system. So it's not like, oh, we need a whole bunch to keep creating things. It's that we need to be able to long-term support the system. So the funding is being moved to our IT budget. Does that answer?
Which will be taken over by our current IT budget. So once all the USIMS funding is expended, then our IT budget takes over. So no additional funding.
That's helpful because I was thinking it was years of creation. And I
Well,
think
our hope is that we will be creating new features as they're needed for as long as they're needed, but that we'll be able to do with the IT budget.
and those are updates as code requirements change and such, not trying to create a system.
Or new reports or
Right.
new things that anybody needs from us. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Don, did you have anything for the 26 definition of done you wanted to discuss?
So I can just talk about this real quick. There's kind of 4 new functionality areas that that finance domain wants to do. First is being able to view the budget and actual submissions in USIMS, whether that be in the UI itself or via reports in Power BI. The second part is once we get data, once the finance API, we receive data from LEAs, USBE needs to check that data to make sure that it's correct. The basic check that we're actually doing right now with the pilot LEA is ensuring that that the numbers match up, that the assets they're reporting equals the liability and fund balances that they're reporting. So that there's those checks. There's a couple checks on making sure the ending balance from the previous year is properly carried over to the next year's starting balance. Those are a couple of those certified data checks that we'll be implementing, and then being able to, in particular, being able to share the published LEA data internally to, teams like MSP and SLT, because they need to have that published data in order to make decisions. And then the final functionality is, right now there's a lot of emails, back and forth with different submissions on related to indirect costs or other things, but being able to like have the LEAs just submit things in USIM, centralize that, and be able to use it across other domains. Those are the main areas of new functionality that we have planned for FY26.
And we'll move over to Tim Davis, our product owner for the educator domain.
Good morning, everyone. So since we last met, just really quickly give you some highlights, things that we've been working on. So Cactus did its yearly rollover. So last year when we did rollover, we turned everything off. You couldn't do anything. So if you're an educator, you're doing a background check, you were held up. So because we have the direct connection with BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, which they provide us the background results and fingerprint cleared or not cleared results. So this year, we didn't realize we needed to keep that service running. And so during the middle of rollover, we quickly had a conversation, we turned it back on. So we were able to continue the background check process. So educators, if they were pursuing their employment or the LAs needed to get that information, we were able to provide that. So that was kind of our successful rollover transition. And we'll discover because last year things were different, and this year because of the direct connection, we kind of learned that we need to keep the service running. And then because of rollover was successful, one of the things after rollover was when we turned everything back on, we actually turned off or sunsetted our legacy remote desktop service for university recommend users. So every university would log into this legacy system, do the recommends. They are now directly logging into USIMS to do all recommendations. And we've had just a few bugs. Just for some reason, it really deals with it's their account, how they sign up for their account. So if someone's using their school account to sign into Microsoft, and it's an issue with Microsoft, nothing with USB or USIMS, or looking at those kinks to try to alleviate those processes. So our universe recommend system is online. I think I have to look off the top of my head. I can pull it up, but I don't want to stall the war. But we've had several recommendations come through the system, and we can provide those numbers to you later. Since then, the focus working group, we've been focused on. Basically, we have an October deliverable to provide functionality for the LAs because of another Microsoft issue of supporting the remote desktop service. So that service support ends in October. So our definition done is actually October to meet that deadline. So LAs can be able to come into USIMS and basically continue to maintain their assignments, look up educators, see if their background check's been cleared. And we've had conversations with the folks working group, just kind of get the absolute must-haves that they need to do come October 15th, because we don't want anyone dead in the water. We don't want anyone stuck. And so we're working on those. So last Tuesday, 3 days ago, we discussed again, we will finalize the definition done at our next focus working group. And so that's our goal. But then we'll transition once we get to October, we'll come up with the definition done for July. So a lot of that might be whatever must-have features that, or not must-have, I should say.
Extras.
The nice-to-haves, or this would be great to have, will be incorporated with the July's definition done. But we also have to incorporate how do we get off Cactus internally for our USB folks. We also have to incorporate the Utah Education Network inside of USIMS. We have to incorporate UPAC into USIMS. So those are all things that I will prioritize and try and plan to provide deliverables and values by July 1st next year.
But still, a party on October 15th. Right, like a big celebration lunch at least or something.
Yes. Mr. Jones.
Isn't that our first USIMS really function?
I'd say because our first one was getting educator licensure and actually hitting production and getting real educators.
Oh, I'm thinking of licensure as part of this, so, okay.
Yeah, but this is for the action, this will be the first big one for all LEAs to be able to.
Okay,
access
not
these.
just teachers see it, licensure. Very cool. Exciting.
And then, so just so for full transparency, we did have, we had some injection sequel issues that we discovered. We are in the process of getting those fixed. So right now, we currently have an issue that has been resolved, but we're going back in cleaning up all impacted educators. So what happened was educators would get a background check because they were renewing their license. And because we have a sequel injection issue that's been fixed, those impactors, when they got the clear result, they didn't sync with data or Cactus. And so BCI said they were cleared, USM said they were cleared, but Cactus didn't show they were cleared. So when LEAs were looking, there's some confusion. So we're going through, we hope to have those impacted educators fixed by Monday. So you're getting this information before some of our SMEs. And so
Yesterday.
yeah, so yeah, details are still coming in, but just for full transparency, you know, we'd like to share the good, but we'll also share some of the not so pretty things that we were encountering, and we have mitigation plans and do our best to get issues fixed as quickly as possible. So that's really what's been happening in the educator development for the past 2-3 months.
Awesome, thank you. Personally, I hate injection sequels. I prefer treatables myself. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, and our last domain is our student domain. I'd like to excuse Mark Waddup's today. He decided to go down to St. George to see his niece get married and to celebrate his anniversary. So I will be doing his presentation for today. So our huge wins for the student domain since the last time we spoke, the student domain was able to deliver an area for our data and statistics group to upload the real student assessment and growth scores, specifically the school growth scores from data and analytics. So they can upload those into the system and we can add those to the reporting into the student backpack. We're also able to do all of the assessments work that we did last year. All of that is in the backpack as well. And our LEAs are able via the EdFi API to get that information. Right now, our student domains are working on the ability to share an IEP. And if you're familiar with the IEPs, these are kind of a hot topic, obviously. A student is required to have an IEP if they have specific things, and that IEP historically has been transferred in a myriad of ways. It is not always digitalized. It is not always easy to share that information, but it's legally required that they do. So our goal is to make it so that USIMS can handle that sharing of information for them, which takes us down from a maximum of, like, I think we had one where they were like, we didn't realize this student needed an IEP for 6 months. And so that student wasn't receiving the things that they needed in order to learn. So our goal is to reduce that down to hopefully just a day. So that as soon as that student gets enrolled within the LGA, we're going to be able to first off notify them that that student does have an IEP. And then our next step is to actually send the IEP to that new enrolling school. We're also working on pulling in course grades and histories to the student data backpack. This is requiring some minor nuances on how those courses are recorded in USIMS. We're working on getting that in place, but that will be in the student backpack here shortly as well. And then getting the real teacher data for student courses. This is the first cross-domain work for the student team as far as going on getting educator data and pulling that in and ensuring that a student is properly given the right educator. So questions on student data work?
Rose, you have a table and there's a chair, maybe Deborah, I don't know if, is that chair available?
That one's blocking the camera.
Oh.
We should do that.
Yep, pull another one in.
I think you can take Tim's, is there another?
I got another meeting. So it's all good.
Oh, you've got one, Cammy, we've got a couple here already. Good. Just same question here as I had. So are we doing the same type of system of the pilot parallel then function here, or are we doing more like IEPs than
So, yeah.
last topic rather than.
Little tiny bits. However, because of board rule that states that everybody has to certify completely on the system before we can allow that system to go forward, we're sending those bits to the SIS vendor so that they can verify, yeah, we can receive and we can send that information. Right now, not a lot of them can receive information from us.
I could stop talking. No, I was gonna come in the other door if I wanted to. Welcome, Member Bogus. We're glad you're here. Thank you. We're just talking about the API right now and the API for the interface of the users.
Yes. So, yes, right now we are sending little pieces of work to those SIS vendors notifying them, hey, this new piece is available for you. Hey, this new piece is available. And they're working on building out there. So a lot of the SIS vendors already have an EdFi API, but they haven't utilized it for Utah before. So they're putting up systems and ensuring that their test environment works, and we'll send them those little pieces so that we can verify as it grows, each little piece, rather than having a giant verification process at the end. And then we will get those onboarded and get the systems started into production. We're hoping that by July of 26, we'll get some systems moving toward production.
So forgive my ignorance, is it the same as the finance? So EdFi is the API right now and USIMS will become the API after the piloting and.
That's the way we talk. It's the data standard that we talk in. So when we say EdFi API, it just means that EdFi has this data standard that they verify that works throughout the nation. And we're using that data standard to talk to everybody else.
That's what I thought. So what is the current API?
It's the USIMS. It is, we are building the API. It is the USIMS API. It's just in an EdFi language.
So it's just, nothing exists right now. We're not using a third-party vendor, but we're using in finance a third-party vendor.
It is actually not a third-party vendor in finance either. It is a USIMS API using the EdFi language as well.
Oh, because on mitigation it said using a third party.
It meant working with the third-party vendors because they're the FIS vendors or third party. I'm sorry.
100% with you.
Okay. Excellent.
Was confused by the slide. That's helpful.
We
Thank
will
you.
reword it so it's.
No, it's me. It's user error. Does anyone have any questions on this presentation? And then before we have grants, we'll have you introduce yourself.
Have 2026 and stuff that we can talk through for the student domain.
Actually, question is, again, when will we be up on student domain?
We are targeting July of 2026. However, there is a board process that has to be verified and reviewed. That we're going through nuances on how that board process works right now.
So, okay, because we've got this other working group going on with 508. And they're looking at, where do we go from here? Do we stay with this kind of situation? Do we go to an outside vendor? Do we, how do we do all kinds of things? And so I think we have their coordinator here, but I think that date is important to share it with your committee because some on the committee have said to me personally, I don't know that it's ever been done. So you're saying that's not true?
It's not true. Right now, actually, our Aspire, our in-house group, is getting really, really close to actually being able to use our API completely. They have already tested data. They're sending and receiving. They're verifying in our test environment. So they're probably the closest to actually being able to just roll this out and be EdFi rather than SIP compliant.
Meeting standards.
Meeting EdFi standards, yes. So right now we have the UTrex spec that everybody has to 300 pages custom developed to, whereas the EdFi API is a nationwide standard. So if they've already got an EdFi API up and running, they just have to apply. We have some section attendance stuff that's unique to Utah that they have to apply, but we've worked with the EdFi Alliance to ensure that that's compliant with their guidance. And eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to get that into the core of the standard. So it's not a Utah specific anymore.
And UTrex will go away.
UTrex will go away, yes.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Appreciate that. And before we have Scott introduce our next presenter, Rebecca, Member Rothis, welcome. Then you just take a minute to introduce yourself. Oh, I'm Christina, I'm serve representing West Jordan, Burns and Taylorsville. Thank you, Member Bobby. Okay.
So Rebecca Nilsson is our subject matter expert on all things Utah grants. She has a great team too. Sarah here. Well,
I have a great team.
and you do, yeah, she has a great team. So much like we did at your direction, Chair, she's going to summarize all the latest and greatest with Utah grants. So you'll recognize her.
Okay, and can I just point out before you start, that's pretty massive that Aspire is that close to being Ed standards. Right, that's a big deal.
For what we have delivered so far. So we've got the assessments, we've got the student grades, we've got growth scores, we've got those things that they're working on being FI compliant, but there is a significant amount of things that we still need to get into the backpack to get rid of U-Trex, those things like that. So
no celebration lunch yet.
but I would like to point out that Aspire has been excellent and lovely to work with, and they are on the point when it comes to getting things delivered. So
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Ma'am, can I just, Derek Belt, USB IT Director. So the funding request for Aspire was just to bring it, not to get it connected to USIMS, but to bring it up. So there's the Aspire users group, and they have a backlog of items to bring it up to
FI
like features that they need that have been sitting there for a long time. So,
And that's what we talked about last time.
Yeah. so I just wanted to clarify that.
Very helpful clarification, thank you so much.
Rebecca Nelson, Director of Grants Administration. I'm here to talk about all things Utah grants. So a lot has happened over this summer. So I'd like to primarily focus on that. I'm also talking about upcoming activities and development activities with our vendor. So first and foremost, wanted to mention that we do have a vended product with REI Systems Inc., who provides the Utah grants product for us. That contract period goes for an additional year, expires September 2026, but we do have some renewal options with that. And that just means that's when we have to put it back up to bid. So we are currently under contract with REI to provide the Utah grants system. We just recently increased the cost of that license by just shy of $100,000 for some additional licenses, also for some additional storage that was needed. All of that was anticipated as a result of much of the development activity that has taken place over the last couple of years. It just came to fruition that we needed additional users and we needed additional storage. So thank you for that. Like to focus on what has happened over the summer. So primarily going back, we have been working very hard with a lot of people within the agency and outside of the agency on completing a Utah consolidated pre-application for our federal awards. Essentially what this does is it consolidates like federal programs and like requirements into one application. Whereas we assure to all of our federal assurances in one place and achieve a substantially approvable application, which is a federal requirement. We have done that. That was put into place in May. We have collected, end of May, we collected all of our applications, pre-applications during the month of June, and they were all finalized within the first week of July. So we were on target and on time with that, and that's a huge accomplishment for my team and for also all of the teams within USBE that were involved in that federal consolidated pre-application. The nice thing about that consolidated pre-application is it gives us a lot of functionality as it relates to combining awards. So for those LEAs that elect to transfer funds from one title program to another, they can now do that through the pre-application process and only need to complete one application rather than multiple applications with additional transfer forms and time. In addition to that, we have added a functionality of program tagging where users can subscribe to program tags and select programs of interest, where they can say, I'm only interested in child nutrition programs. Please don't send me any other emails unless they relate to child nutrition programs. That helps us to target our messaging better to our users and to help avoid some of our email fatigue. In addition to that, we also have some peer review functionality. So within an application or the pre-application, users can share the application amongst others within their LEA so that they can use their subject matter experts to help complete those consolidated application functions, especially as they become more broad and involve other teams. They can collaborate within their LEA to complete that pre-application.
Was it not shared before?
Correct.
Sorry, I shouldn't ask until you stop for questions. I won't do that again.
You're great. Please, at any point, feel free to interrupt and ask clarifying questions.
She's not here all day. You're all day. Let me interrupt you.
In addition to being able to transfer funding during that pre-application process, we also enacted some functionality that we can enforce post-award transferability. So if an LEA decides to transfer funds after they've received their awards, they can do that at that point. We also have the ability to handle that from an awards perspective. So we're now able to combine two different awards into one award. We also have it's called a consolidated application. We just put this into place we have 2 or 3 programs. For example, our Perkins program have multiple different funding sources. We can now combine those funding sources into one application. Essentially, this has changed a lot of our methodology and logic within the system, whereas every program funding source had to have one award and one application, kind of a one-to-one relationship. We can now within Utah Grants have a one-to-many relationship, one application or one award with many different funding sources. What this does is it helps our LEAs to have fewer awards to manage, especially if it's like funding and it's one program, just happens to come from multiple funding sources. Our team within financial operations can still keep track of the multiple different funding sources, which programs these funds are coming from, but from the LEA perspective, may or may not care that that's coming from multiple funding sources. They have one program to manage. Now do that with one program. So that's really exciting. A lot of the underlying logic that we have done is to make sure that one-to-many relationship stands. Can also apply some carry forward functionality. Same with the one-to-many. Use carry forward funds and current year funds all within the same grant award. Also enforce some payment handling for that, so that when the payments come to financial operations, they know when which programs are to be drawn from. And then we also enforce some additional forms to go along with our applications. Also this summer, we issued a revised award letter to be able to handle the multiple funding sources per award. So now we can specify which requirements and which accounting codes are associated with each of those multiple sources within one award letter. We also changed the way that the award letter is accessed within Utah Grants. It's a button that's the same place where the rest of the buttons have been, kind of top right corner, rather than a hyperlink with like blue words that people have lost. So that's exciting. We continue to work on a new 2.1 development. These are items that are still a work in progress. We are continuing to develop additional forms to go alongside with our applications. The PDF comparison tool, where we can compare an application submission if it changes. If we have a revised application, we can compare them side by side. The PDF comparison tool will outline that for our staff to say, here's where the changes were made within that application. We have some plans for enhanced reporting and dashboard, especially as it relates to LEA dashboards, how they access the information and making things more front and center rather than having to dig deeper and more clicks. So that's very exciting. The peer review functionality currently only exists with the consolidated pre-application. We'll roll that out to all other application types. And then we're reinforcing the multiple funding sources on competitive awards. So if we have a competitive award, we can apply that one-to-many on that pathway as well. We're refining our global search so that you can use that top left button to say search for something and it will search across every single module within Utah Grants rather than having to know which tab to be on before you search. And then we're also working on some training that's called What Fix workflows, where you can say, take me to a payment request, and the system will say, click here, and then click here, and then click here. So it's a great training tool that's going to be available. We'll have 4 to 6 workflows available in that What Fix workflow. Our timeline for that is fall. There's a lot to do, a lot of things still coming, and it will likely come out in a couple of different rollouts. Our first scheduled rollout will be September, and likely the following will be on October. So we're well on our way. This is how you contact me and how you contact my team. And that's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, members?
I'll follow you. I know you have one.
Well, I will just say that, our Reports and Requirements Task Force meets at the end of August, and they'll be so happy to hear these new updates. My question was on the vendor, I think it was REI Systems or something. Will we always need a third-party vendor?
Yes,
For Utah grants?
yes.
This is never gonna become a part of USIMS or some other program. We're always going to need a third-party vendor for Utah grants.
That is my understanding. There may be opportunities for interfaces between systems, but it's my understanding that this will stand alone.
Thank you.
Member Bacchus, I wanted to ask you a question about, I believe it's slide number 8. And when you talked about post-award transferability,
Sorry, I do not see my slide numbers on there, so tell me when I get there.
it starts with 2.0 release April 7, and then the top line is post-award transferability.
Yep,
Right there.
thank you.
So when you were speaking about this, you said something, it wasn't quite what it said issue. It was a little bit different. That led me to believe an LEA can be awarded a grant for one reason and move that money to another reason as long as it's an eligible thing.
So our title programs have some requirements. So for example, Title II can be repurposed into Title I. So a Title I school can use their Title II funding for Title I if they elect to do so. There's some requirements they need to have a plan in place, but they can do that. So if they elect to utilize their Title II funding for a Title I purpose, we still need to keep track, accounting still needs to keep track of both grants essentially, but the LEA doesn't. It's all Title I. So that gives us the opportunity to combine those two funding sources, Title I and Title II, into one award.
Okay, so are people applying for Title II funding and moving it to Title I?
We can do both now. So we can do it before they even apply. They can say, our plan is to just use Title II as Title I and not even have to apply for Title II funding, or they can do that after the fact. They can apply for both funding sources and change their mind and say, now we want to repurpose this funding to Title I.
Thank you.
Yeah, system will allow for both, and the federal requirements ask us to do that throughout the life of the grant, so, or allow LEAs to make that option.
Thank you.
It's nice to have the flexibility. All right, thank you. Appreciate it, Rebecca. Director. Director Neil. Grants Manager Nielsen. I'll get all the titles right. All right, thank you. We have charter local levy revisions. And MSP Administrator Dale Frost.
Yes, and
This guy.
Chair, if
And Director Bruff. Thank you.
Sorry.
so Dale Frost, Minimum School Program Administrator, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I was quickly going to highlight some parts of this very complex diagram to set the stage. And then I was going to let Director Bruff talk about probably the most important part of this presentation is about how the data is collected. And then and what we're doing on the geocoding side to improve the it's called District of Residence data. We're going to get into that. And then we'll talk to you about the financial implications on the charter levy on the property tax side for this work. Does that work, Sharon? Okay. I shamelessly stole this this graphic. It comes from the Office of the Legislative Fiscal Analyst. There are actually 6 rates that a school district can levy. You can see them here listed. There's the voting local levy, the board local levy, the capital local levy, and the debt service. I guess we're showing 5 here. I'm sorry. Debt service levy, and then down here is the charter school levy. What this diagram is showing is kind of the flow on how what's called the charter school local replacement funding is generated. If you ask anybody in the charter world, after the WPUs, charter school local replacement is probably the most important funding source for charter schools. And it's meant to make up for the fact that charter schools can't levy property taxes. And so essentially this very complex diagram is how it generates $302 million from both state and local sources. 47.5, and this is what we're going to be talking about, comes from the charter school levy, how that is calculated and what we're doing on the data side. It provides $3,600 this year per student based on October 1 enrollment counts. And it's essentially the average local revenues that school districts receive per student. So I wanted to give you that idea, because when we started talking about district of residence data, that drives a lot of that formula. And so I will hand this over to Director Ruff. Just tell me when you want me to go to the next slide.
Let's go to the next slide. So the district of residence, by the way, I've been here before and talked about other like address issues that are all interconnected. This is data quality we're talking about. But and as we look at this, historically, the way the SISs were set up, especially the charter schools, a student parent would show up and say, I want to go to this school. And the registrar would say, well, what district do you live in? Show me your address. And they would go into the SIS system, pull a drop-down list, and they'd say, oh, I live in Salt Lake. And they would just plug it in there. And so the data then that would flow into USB would just say Salt Lake. And we took them for their word. And that's the best we could do. As we started then receiving addresses, and this process has been going on for a while now, we're validating against it. We want to say, okay, you can't just guess on these numbers. So that kind of sharing what we're looking at.
Did you want to go here?
Well, yeah, thank you. Sorry. So as you look in here, it's like, oh, okay, I can just click on this. And I think this is an Aspire example where it's like, give me that drop-down list. They click on it, they click Davis, and they send it to us. Go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So as we were looking at this, we found, well, looking at the addresses, these don't all line up. An address might say Salt Lake, but you're actually in Granite, for example. And so the process was, as we went, we pulled all of the addresses that were submitted and checked them against the district of residence and said, are these the same? And the way we did that is we used the state GIS system that has the map of all the boundaries, and we just overlaid the two and then ran through the process. And when we found an error, we'd say, that's gotta be updated. So when I say updated, we had changed the code, we created a new column, say, okay, here's the new district of residence that we believe this is correct for. And so you can see as we went through this process, and this is not actual data, this is obscure data, if that makes sense, where I went in just letting people on my know. So if someone's like, oh, that's my address, I put a whole bunch of dots on the screen, just so that's for Katie Chalice and privacy, just so you're aware.
You heard Katie in the back of your ear.
Well, we talked about this. I said, can I actually show it?
Not my house.
Just said, can I actually show the screen? The answer was like, oh, these are addresses. Like, I know it's really small and blurry, but we simulated data. Just so you know.
Sorry.
Yes, so that's what we're doing here. So basically, as we look at this, and the example down below, as you can see in the, I'm gonna say that's, I can't even see from here. It's like,
Is that
Jordan? It's like Jordan put up there. So Jordan, basically, Jordan had all of these marks in other districts. Like, nope.
So the actual boundary of Jordan is the blue on the left there?
I believe this is Jordan.
It's like Jordan line right there.
Oh,
Well, it kind of goes up.
Yeah, okay.
okay, so the blue lines are outlining.
Yeah.
The districts, this is,
Yeah.
I believe this is Granite right here.
And Granite's,
And Salt Lake up here,
some of them are
and Alpine is down here.
weird, yeah.
Okay.
So that was the process. You can see over here on the rural side too, is it's like, it's Emory and Carbon. And it's like, it's like, wait a minute, how do I have
why am I getting paid, if you will, or why am I being charged for a student who's not even living in my county, what's going on here? And so we went through and basically we did that for entire state. We've had 2 over-the-shoulder reviews with the districts. Jordan and Granite came in and wanted to validate what we were doing, make sure it made sense. And so we said it over a shoulder. I don't know if you remember those conversations from a couple of months ago, say, how can we do this? Because these are not their students, but they live within their boundaries. So we're not sharing the data with them directly, but we can do a validation review when they come in person. We're not giving them anything. We're just saying, let's go through.
The discrepancy would be a student living in Lehigh, going to a school in Draper.
A charter school in Draper and claiming that they live in, for example, in Jordan School District, when they live in Alpine. So we just had to go through and data quality.
Right.
Get those aligned correctly. So big process, just so the board is aware, this last year, the LEAs have really loved us because we put in place the validations on the addresses that were coming in, and they had to get them corrected. Because when they would submit an address and it came to us, and they had multiple ways of submitting addresses. I want to say multiple ways. It's like physical address. We couldn't use a mailing address. You could do a geocode. You could go on to Google and just grab the Google's coding on that and put that inside of there. We would take any one of those in the process, but every LEA this last year had to get those correct to make sure that our information, when roles were financed, for example, especially in the district, for instance, and the charter local levy, that one. Thank you. That the information was accurate, and now that the LEAs who have questioned those in the past can look at the information, get over the shoulders, and say, "Yep, these kids are within our boundaries, and we recognize this." So that's been the process. I think that's the last of the slide.
And in terms of,
go ahead, go one more.
I think that's it. Director Braff, wasn't it about 95% accurate?
Yeah.
About 5% needed to be adjusted? Or was it depending?
Between 5 and 10. I don't remember the exact.
Right, it varied.
There was some shuffling, definitely, but it wasn't like the whole state got moved around. It was just.
This was prior to, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, from before the geocoding work and after.
So first year that we really started looking at this was off of the 2023, 2024 data that came in. And we just completed the 2024, 2025. So we're in the process of doing all the, basically the runs right now. So we haven't gotten looked at everything yet at the moment, but this whole year has been multiple validations first with the LEAs. So they've been correcting it throughout the year.
So I'm showing this graph again, and kind of show you the so what and how this started. Jordan really kind of, with their questions, kickstarted this process, because you see here, this green kind of determines a district per pupil local revenue, and that includes both district and resident charter school students. So that's the multiplier, essentially, how much per student, but then that's multiplied by the fall enrollment of resident charter school students. So for example, let's say, and it's only 25% of the per pupil revenues. Let's say that, Jordan had $4,000 per pupil from their local revenue sources. 25% is $1,000 per student. If you have an extra student who actually lives in Alpine, Jordan taxpayers are paying $1,000 more than they should have. That's why we're doing this work. And so when we first did it, we did it just for Jordan. We could identify these are the students outside your boundary. What we couldn't answer was how many Alpine students were the other way around, because you want to look at the net difference. If you have one student who should have been in Jordan and one student who should have been in Alpine, and so you're just like we had to do it statewide to really get basically the correct data for all districts.
Did these over the shoulder audits prompt this whole geo?
They're probably. Yeah, it's an aging Ladris. Ladris has been coming in for a while, so.
Right.
The charter schools originally had a center address.
The very tight geo.
But this is one of the multiple facets that has been triggering us really looking at the addresses as it's been coming in.
So what happens when you have a VA that's also an auditor in Jordan?
Yeah,
It's interesting.
so I mean, it was a component of definitely looking deeper into it, so.
And the reason why Jordan asked initially was, 1 year their charter levy was like 3.5 million, and then it jumped, maybe it's 4 million. It jumped significantly to 6 million. And they said, we think you're counting too many students who are not in our district. The reality of why that jumped up was they increased their property taxes. And so that increased the multipliers. We did want to check the data to make sure that's the case. So let's go to the so what here. And I apologize for these tiny numbers. But I'll talk about a couple of them here. We can take Alpine up here. So this is fiscal 25 District of Residence data. So that first column here says original versus updated ADM. So ADM is like a full-time student. So, and these are charter school students living within Alpine. So 12,466 were originally reported. Turns out was 12,593. So that, you know, once we corrected for all these things, Alpine actually had 127 full-time students that weren't counted in the original calculations when we set those property taxes. And then we did it also for the District of Resident counts, that was 113. And so we calculated what's the difference. And so that's a $27,000 difference increase in the amount that the charter levy should have been. Because we did this for 2 years, because that was how far we went back on the geocoding, is that right? That was a small change for Alpine. The more significant ones I wanted to show here for Salt Lake, in terms of number of students near the bottom here, it was overcounted by 338 students for full-time and 419 on head counts. And when I was thinking about this as the data came back, it's not that surprising when people are like, I don't know where this is. It's close to Salt Lake, you know? And so it makes sense that maybe that.
So Salt Lake doesn't like you.
It's reverse.
What this will do is reduce their property taxes. We overcharge them. So at the end of the day, so this sums up all of the data for those 2 years, the total impact. So for example, Alpine, the adjustment was 82,693. You know, considering a $6 million levy, not that large. But Salt Lake, for example, their property taxes this current tax year were reduced by $894,000. And so overall property taxes from this levy went down from this effort. Even though the number of students didn't really change, it depends on the property taxes of each individual district. So overall property taxes went down by $617,000. This work will be largely mitigated going forward because we're doing the geocoding on the front end. There might be some very small adjustments, but nothing like this. Do you agree, Aaron? Yeah. And so when we sent out, so last thing, every year we true up to actual collections, so they're used to adjustments. So basically, you know, according to our calculations, your district needs to pay $6 million. Let's say your property taxpayers actually paid $6.5 million. So for the next year, it would be $5.5 million. Okay. In addition to that, we did these adjustments that are shown here. So there was this one-time adjustment for the geocoding. And so that was provided to the State Tax Commission and the districts. And then that prompted like Granite to want to make sure that the data, they agreed that we were using the maps properly. And I wasn't there for that, but I know Director Yuri was, I heard that overall it was a good experience. It helped to build confidence without breaching data privacy. So we just wanted to let you know about our process improvements, and obviously this impacts property taxes, which is important to your constituents. So we're happy to answer other questions. That finishes our presentation on the issue.
We're just looking at your top line, and I thought you said Alpine lost 88,000, but here it says on the top line, number one, it gained 27,000.
So you have to kind of think about this. And so the green means it's going up, red means it's going down, and this is in terms of property taxes. So that means that for this year, the charter levy went up by 82,693 for Alpine. That's why it's green. It went up.
So green is bad and red is good in this case.
Yeah,
What they
I think-
particularly-
Right, but for me, yes, and for me, it's really hard for me to color positive numbers in red, but you're right. Green is bad, red is good in the sense because you're bringing down property taxes or bringing them up.
For the LEA, the charter students get the same regardless. 'Cause it's,
That's not changing. This is just, how do those $47 million get allocated in terms of property tax liability? Maybe I should have used different colorings. I'm so used to doing, it's ingrained in me, so I apologize.
But like in Salt Lake on 36, it says that they gained 400,000. Is that right?
Oh, excuse me, Salt Lake.
On line 36, Salt Lake.
Yeah, so when we updated the 25 data, we essentially overestimated their charter levy by 404,000. And then if you look at the 26 charter levy data, that's that second set of columns, it was 489,000. So you sum those two up, that's how you get to the 894,000. And that is a reduction on their property taxes for this year. It was a one-time reduction to their property taxes to correct for the data.
I see. So that's a combination of page 3 and 5.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks. I meant to imagine this was easy.
They do the hard work. I just don't have good numbers.
Regardless, thank you for the work you do. I can't imagine this was anything but tedious.
You know, tedium. But yes, it was a lot of work, and
I have a support group. We meet Friday nights at 7.
I can tell you that the LEAs and worked really, really hard, but our staff has worked really hard. The USIMS team has been working really, really hard on this because it was, surprise, this has got to be fixed on every single individual here. And
yeah, I really want to compliment Director Bruff's staff, especially, I'm sorry, McKay. Yeah, David Mackey, excuse me. Just so much work to get this all right, but it's making a difference.
That's nice. Thank you so much. Appreciate your work. 2.5 fee schedule addition. We have Director Megan Everett here and Quality Instruction Coordinator Katie Hill. And Katie, I had a text that you are online also. She is. You are online. And let me just say welcome to you, Katie, and also online to Norley Green, Don Mode. I'm saying that right? Modi? Okay, those 3 are also online in addition to Todd Hauber, so we welcome all of you. All right, and can I just say, I heard your presentation at the Rural Schools Conference was fabulous, and I'm so sad I didn't, was at a different one and didn't, anyway, I'm so sad I missed it.
Well, thank
It's really
It was a fun thing to get to do.
Yes, both of you I heard were fabulous presenters. So, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, well, Megan, is that you? I can't see you, but good to hear from you too.
Yeah,
So
got to sit next to Katie the next morning too, so.
He's also a little famous.
Yeah.
Rubbing shoulders.
Yeah, it
The
was-
famousness was rubbing
yeah, it
off.
was fun.
I can get you an autograph.
Right? I should have at the time.
That was Vice Chair Kelly talking. If you can't, I don't know how well you can see us here.
yeah, so this I should just so this is an item that would help us with a need that we're having that's coming about because of the we're using micro credentials as a way to verify competency in certain skills, and some of these skills are to help inform some endorsements. And so the micro credentials are a way for people to submit evidence that they have a way of showing that, like, I don't need to take a course, I have this competency already, I've learned it through existing experience. Because at USBE we're saying to educate, that's what we value, is your actual understanding and competency of the skills more than the path that you took to acquire them. So as these micro credentials have become a more used mechanism, they have increased the need for us to find a scalable way to make sure that we aren't overburdening staff to where they are evaluating micro credentials as a primary part of their job, but that this is something that we are able to train reviewers. And so what's happened as the micro credentials have been used, as educators are kind of learning how to demonstrate their competency, we've had some situations in several contexts where people would submit and then try to correct it and it wasn't right, and resubmit, and it was just creating this undue burden. And so because the way that the micro credential fee is structured, they pay one time $20, and that funds the reviewer, who is a trained person who has that competency and knows what they're looking at with the evidence. And the issue that we're running into is that that the reviewers get paid one time, but then if they're resubmitting and resubmitting, the burden to review that over and over and over again is not paid. So it's not sustaining the hours it would require, but the reviewers who are not USBE employees are getting paid, and so it's not a cost neutral situation, because they end up getting paid more than the submitter is submitting. And so we wanted to talk through this idea of hoping that we could change that structure to where they are paying when they resubmit. And I'll stop talking. Megan is there too to help clarify anything I've said.
Did you want to, thank you so much, Katie. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure.
Any questions?
So there's kind of two pieces to this. One, micro credentials have increased in use as we have a competency-based pathway to achieve being certified in different endorsements. And when somebody submits, if they resubmit, the reviewer has to spend that time, and we need to pay them the additional $20, but we're not taking in an additional $20. Previously, we had set aside about $15,000 a year, and that was able to cover the cost of reviewing micro credentials. In the backup, I included some of the numbers from this year, and just April through June, we were close to $14,000 in micro credential reviews, just for initial reviews. And so we're just far exceeding what we're able to set aside and pay reviewers for that. So the request is to add a $20 fee to the fee schedule to enable us to collect that $20 from people as they submit their micro credentials. It's still a tremendous cost savings to a teacher, because their other avenues would be to do graduate work, do an endorsement class, or pay for a praxis. So those are significantly more than going this micro credential route.
I have a couple questions, but I'll wait if members have questions.
Well, I have a couple questions. What are we looking at in a total budget in a year? And do we have data on, like, are people submitting one time, or are they submitting 6 times? Because as I counted the again and again and again, like I think I got to 6. But my point is are we doing 1 or 2 submissions, or are there actually people submitting 10 times trying to figure it out?
We're trying to limit the amount of times that people submit, and in an ideal world, you would already have, the whole idea of getting the micro credential is that it's a competency that you already have earned in some other way, maybe you taught in another state, something like that. Occasionally, there are people that don't quite figure it out the first time, and so they have to do that second round. There's a limited number of people that are trying again and again, because it's really not the purpose. And we try to redirect them to like, maybe it's time for you to take a class and learn the competency better before you come back to try again for the micro credential. I think the bigger problem from again and again, and I don't have an exact number of how many people that is, because the vast majority are doing the one time, but even at that one time, we've just seen a dramatic increase in number of micro credentials per year. So like I mentioned, in the last couple of years, we've set aside about $15,000. In the last year to 2 years, as these have become part of the competency pathway, that happens in a number of months, and we just can't keep up.
The reviewers do not work for USBE, is that accurate?
True. There are a few reviewers that are at USBE that they're doing this because they haven't yet trained expert reviewers, but for somebody to be a reviewer in the field, they need to be an expert in that content area themselves, and they need to have training from the USBE person to know what they're looking for. For example, in Katie's endorsement classes that she runs, she has outside reviewers, but she had to train them specifically on what to look for, what was expected in the competency. Then they're able to do reviews. And the reason we don't use the in-house reviewers is because it can easily become a huge portion of their time, which is not what we want to see happen.
How much does that training cost us?
Our staff time.
Yeah, and so the training process that we use is it depends on what the competency that we're searching for is, you know, like what that is. And so staff will help them with the specific evidence work. For instance, my people went through a course where they learned the competencies and demonstrated they could do that, and that's how they were selected to have that opportunity to review if they wanted it. And then there's also the technical training process that staff does through how to handle the micro credentials logistically in Midas.
But no, we don't pay them for the initial learning to be a reviewer. It's something that they tend to want to do because they can earn.
So it's a commission type thing, you're getting paid per review?
Per review.
Okay.
And you can only review in the area that you've been identified for a content expert for. So a secondary science content expert is going to review a secondary content micro credential.
So our employees might be reviewers, but they review after hours if they're getting this.
They don't get paid. So it would just be as a part of their, as a part of their work.
And they do it short. This way you can't equate it to dollars, I'm guessing, because it's a short-term thing until you can get the outside reviewers.
Right. It's ideal because you don't want a staff person spending some significant portion of their time doing these reviews. You want them doing their job. Ideally, the staff person's responsibility is to set up that micro credential in such a way that there's a rubric there for people that are going through it. There's that it's very clear what the people need to do, and that's what the staff person's responsibility is to the micro credential.
Are the reviewers educators or industry professionals or both or what?
Educators, yeah.
Okay.
And any that I know of, and I can't speak to all 169 that are trained, but they're current educators. And so they do it outside of their contract hours. It's a way for them to experience something, do a little something extra, small amount of money.
How long does it take them?
It depends on the micro credential. But it could take an hour, it could take 2.
So they're not making big on this.
No,
It's not a testing review.
No.
Well, and part of the reason for the cost is to keep it cost neutral for USBE, so that like we're not trying to make money on this, and we're also just trying to have it not cost anything. So there's a way for us to verify competency in a really scalable way by people who have been identified by experts as being expert in that area. And so it wouldn't be just anybody judging any evidence. It would be specific people judging specific evidence based on the training that they have for that. But that it gives us a way to have a pretty logical process for people to show that they have competency, so we can say, yes, you understand enough about this content to be able to teach it effectively and the content pedagogy for it. And we were able to do that without the educator necessarily spending time in an area they didn't need to, because they already had that competency. And it also takes away the arbitrary, like, I think he's good, you know, I know he's like working 6 years in a particular content area doesn't necessarily mean competency, you know, and it probably does and we can see that with the micro credentials. So this is the way for us to be able to have a pretty uniform, equitable way for everyone to be able to demonstrate that according to their experience and their ability.
Two questions. The first one was the same as Member Bogus's, but on average, how many people are submitting for extra reviews? And I can see how charging for each review would actually cut down on people who may just want to, I don't want to say the word game the system, but want a shortcut to being able to teach something without learning the intricacies of the content. But on the other side, and I had said this to Deputy Jones, the only way I feel like I can support doing this is that if our rubrics were very clear on the expectation from the very beginning on what's expected for the initial submission.
Yeah.
And can you speak to that a bit?
I have not been in all 500 of the micro credentials that we have, but that is a component of building them out. So we employ a micro credential expert through Davis District. So they're actually housed there, and they work with each one of those to ensure that the rubric is there, that the expectations are very clear, that all of those pieces exist, and that people have a way when they're submitting something, they should know exactly what they have to submit and exactly how they'll be scored or how it would be determined that they meet that competency.
So there are certain standards through this employee that's looking over all of these
Yes.
for consistency.
Yes.
Okay.
Are those rubrics strictly academic? Meaning, you know, college courses, I'll give you an example of what I'm thinking, and maybe you can help me understand this, but if you have someone that ran a business for 30 years and is a retired businessman and ran a multi-million-dollar business, and he wants to teach a business class at his local high school, are we going to tell him he's got to go take some college courses in business to be endorsed to teach a business class?
Potentially. So that falls more under Malia's realm of how we support the endorsements, but within the endorsement, it could be courses that they've previously taken. There could be some level of demonstrated expertise. It could be that they choose to take a praxis to show what or something relevant to show what they have learned. But it is possible that they would go through like a micro credential where they say, I've got 30 years of expertise. I should be able to just demonstrate this competency. The micro credential itself. So if you think about endorsement classes are graduate level courses, the micro credential itself, they need to submit evidence of, and they each vary a little bit, but a lesson plan, explain how I see this science method as evidenced in your lesson plan and those kinds of things. So they can show that they're able to do it and that they're demonstrating it.
So I don't know too. So there's an academic content and a pedagogical requirement. Sounds like, but I think because this guy in this scenario would need to be getting a license. And in your scenario, you're getting an endorsement for an already licensed person. So there can be two different standards.
Yes.
I'm guessing for that one.
Yeah, that's true. And as an example, I mean, I was an educator in another state. That state does not do endorsements. So I had a lot of content knowledge coming to Utah when we moved, but I didn't have something to show I had that competency already. So a micro credential pathway that didn't exist at the time would have been a way to show I've taught, I know how to teach, I know these pedagogical underpinnings of things, without having to go through more graduate work. For myself, I did 36 additional graduate hours that I had to pay for because this route was not available at the time.
So it's really a benefit to our teachers who want to get an endorsement without going out to take graduate level courses to pay for it.
If they already have
They
the
can
the
have
knowledge.
the skills. Okay, members, any other questions before we vote? I'm seeking a motion.
I'll make a motion that the
Okay.
committee approve the proposed addition to the fee schedule and forward it to the board for final approval.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table that the committee approves the proposed addition to the fee schedule and forwards it to the board for final approval. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? You, 2.6, R277-622, school-based mental health qualifying grant program amendment, analyst Greg Conn.
Thank you. We made some amendments to this rule based on some recent legislation, and then while the rule was open for amendment, there's a few additions that we made as well. The first of those additions would be adding the oversight category to this rule. You'll see that in lines 3, there was a little change just to add oversight category to the title, and then the real change comes down in line 20. It's categorized as a category 4 according to our R277111. Due to some changes in the legislature, we did have to remove some stuff down a little bit lower, but we also added in some clarification as well. So in lines 80 and 81, you'll see there's clarification to make sure that's within that application window for any plans to be submitted for approval. And then our next changes come in R277622-6, allowable use of funds. This is where it was affected by legislation, so we had some striking of the language that was no longer useful due to changes in legislation. And then there was a couple other things changed, the due date from October to August 1st, and then a couple other lines were also stricken, and then we added in some clarification on lines 139 for contracted. And took out using the above baseline count due to that no longer being relevant. And those are the changes within this 622.
So most of those aligned with the new code changes. Any questions, members? I'm seeking a motion.
I have a motion that the committee approve R277-622 school-based mental health qualifying grant program, draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the committee approves R277-622 school-based mental health qualifying grant program, draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Me. I should have used my new tool. I'd like me to use my new tool. That Randy gave you. It's fantastic. Feels here, I'm professional, but it's fantastic. So everyone knows what you're talking about. It says it 20 different ways too, guys. 20 different ways. It's true. I heard a few yesterday. It's entertaining. Item 2.7, action R277-318 teacher salary supplement program. This is just a repeal, if I understand. Is Deputy Superintendent Newey here?
As in law and licensing.
No, if she needs to be necessarily, because
She's not, she could ask me to handle this rule and it is a repeal.
It's a repeal.
Let's get the repeal.
then it has to be via code, because this is related to the whole new teacher salary supplement code, right?
Right.
Okay, any questions, members?
We do have Sam if you.
Sorry. All right, I'm seeking a motion.
I'll make a motion that the committee repeal R277318 Teacher Salary Supplement Program, TSSP, on first reading and recommend that the board repeal the rule on second and final reading.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the committee repeal R 277-318 teacher salary supplement program on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. 2.8, strategic response to projected 2.2 million funding loss for statewide longitudinal data system, which is a 4-year project that we're in the middle of, but it looks like we've lost some funding. Director Bruff. And I'm just going to preface this with just reminding folks that this is the system that allows students and parents to one-stop shop between K-12 and higher ed and what they need to do with transcripts and such and things like that. So go ahead.
Director Bruff. Lead in statistics, I'm here again. Just sharing with you some background and history behind this. In Utah, we applied for, it was the 2009 and received that grant. We got the 2012 grants. The 2015, we applied for the 2019, did not get that grant. And then we applied for the 2023 grant. This is the SLDS grant. This is not a new religion that we're doing here. It's also pronounce it as SLEDs. You might hear this in other conferences or such, but it's the Student Longitudinal Data Systems is what this stands for. So we've been a part of this for quite a while. If you look at Utrex, for example, and our warehouse, all of those, the genesis behind those is finishing one of this grant. And so what it is basically the federal government has, through the Department of Ed, has provided seed money for the states to go out and write a grant proposal and say, this is what we want to do. Again, it's all about the information updates and corrections so we can, one, accomplish a lot of the tasks that are required both within the state and also reporting federal levels and having robust systems. So sharing with you, I was at a conference just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to the individuals from New York, and I asked them, so September's coming up, and their first year having a grant at all, and like, so what's your plan? And she responded to me saying, oh, it's just gonna happen, we're just moving forward. So just kind of laying the groundwork is, she has no plan. What happens after September? And sharing with the committee, I have no idea, and I don't know if anyone has an idea what will happen come after September when we go into the new fiscal year. We have heard nothing. Is the grant going to, is the funding going to continue, or is the funding going to go away? There's no one who knows. So if you want to say anything?
No, Madam Chair, it's because the Congress is still in the process, right? I mean, so budget proposals were made by the president. They're still in the process. Right now, as far as I know, the only part of Congress that has made a budget proposal is the Senate Appropriations Committee. And as it relates specifically to public education funding, it looks promising though that if that were to go through, we would continue to get the grant, but Congress has to approve a budget and they have to do it by September 30th or they have a shutdown, right? Or another CR, continuing resolution, whatever. So it's in progress right now. We're monitoring it. We're trying to keep up on it. But what we're also trying to do is, hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? Is so that we can do it. Because as I said yesterday in the board meeting, long term, we're going to have to work closely with the legislature. Decisions are going to need to be made, especially if we encounter any reductions in particular grants like this one, and especially where we're like midway through or, a portion of it, because then it becomes a policy decision or is a policy decision. So does that make sense?
How much has already been spent on it and how much would we lose, say, if we picked up 5 years from now? Would we have to start over and we keep get our work or what?
Again, we're 2 years into the program or to the grant year. So can you ask me the exact number? I'm like, I don't have that right from my head. I want to say we're about close to 2 million, I think is where we're at. So we're about halfway through. We're right on budget or on track with our plan. if it stops, and so let's talk about what this current one is doing is, we're looking at it's again, using the word sleds or SLDS. This is the larger system, so this is our cooperation between, USHE is where it's housed right now. It's also the Department of Commerce, it's the Department of Workforce Service, it's Department of Health with early childhood, all of them. So, and there's multiple functions. So we do have the research component that, like I said, we had prior grants already in place that build those out and that the state is now funding and supporting. So that stays and that's fine. What this is again, we're using it as seed money to say, developing now for the future, how can we make sure the information when a parent or a student needs to get that information transferred over? So for example, if you heard of the Admit Utah process that USHE is working on, try and make sure that every student in Utah has access to register automatically for all the universities in Utah. How do we get their transcripts, their information from K-12 to USHE? Well, a lot of times the kid has to go and enter it, or they have to call the school, they have to get, download the transcripts, submit it to the process. How do you make that automatic, but also secure?
Can I just make clear to the public, you said register, but I think you meant apply, because we're looking at
Yes.
one application for multiple, so they don't have to do 13 applications,
correct.
and then they can see their choices.
Correct, you want to do, 13,
Right.
you just go through and be automatic. That's one example, there's multiple examples I put in the backup, that this is planned.
They don't have to register if they chose to accept the invitation.
The examples we're talking about inside of the USIM system. So right now, for example, when a parent comes in with their student, they have to bring their birth certificate. We don't have access into vital statistics, but through this bridge project, the idea is they would go into their SIS system, say, oh, you're a new student, you're born here. Click, if you will, inside of their SIS system, it goes to USIMS then pings through bridge, goes over automatically to vital statistics, verifies that there's a birth certificate there, and all the information lines up, comes back with not the birth certificate, just the verification. It's all there, all the information put in is accurate. So that data quality process is in place, plus the LEAs no longer have to maintain those birth certificates because it's
That
already
records
in
in
place.
one system instead of multiple systems.
That's the concept that we're trying to free up and alleviate. So, I mean.
It's a little safer.
So with that said, going back to your question, so we spend about half. If the program comes to an end, well, that just means we retire the program and we stop. IT shelf life is really, really short if you're not maintaining it. And basically, if you're, I can't remember the name of the vendor that USHE's using. Do you remember their name? Anyway, they're working with a vendor to build this all out. Basically, they would cancel that contract. The software that's been developed right now would go away. I mean, you have maybe like I would say maybe about a month and a half window of maybe, I don't know. When you lose your job, what do you do? Anyway, so that's the scenario putting in front of you is just saying, I have no idea what's going to happen in September. We have a grant, we're halfway through it. We've got 2 more years to complete this. It has benefits not only to USBE and all of our LEAs, but early childhood, USHE are all looking at this. There's also backup letting you know that we talked with the director at USHE, and he did send his support saying they're going to look to see if they can find some money to support this. Again, this is all about strategically planning for the worst. Again, what Scott said, hoping for the best, but don't want to run off that cliff if that's what it's going to be. So at this point, we're saying, and I think the proposal or the proposed amendments are before you. Are there any questions? I mean, I can talk about this for hours, but I don't want to.
I'm seeing this letter from Commissioner Fushi. Where were the examples? You mentioned there were some examples in backup. Do you know?
It should be looking at. Yes. Sorry. It's this one. It's
Elevation use.
what goes on hold. So it's this one right here. It's that one right there.
Okay, I got it here.
Well, yeah, he's,
Okay. All right.
Do you want me to pass it?
no,
I just, that's me, which one's like, sorry.
That's all right. So, at the end of 4 years, so we're halfway through it, is the project going to be ongoing or is it done? It's finished?
So what happens, so part of the grant actually is then sustainment planning. How do you continue to make sure, so kind of talking about like what's going on with the Yushi development. That once you complete the project, then you do have to sustain it, and that would be state supported as we look at that. So there is an end to this grant or end of this development period that we look at. And then it rolls into the maintenance period. Again, working with the state legislature, making sure that this is a value added for all the agencies that we use. Does that help answer the question?
So if we were to recommend that staff look at options, if we were to do something like Yushi's looking at options, I presume to pay maybe half of this remaining cost for Yushi, you'd look at federal lease monies that we have available or discretionary funds and things like that.
That's what we're.
And would, I don't know who this question is for, maybe we need to figure this out, but if we were to make this motion, would it mean that then in September, then the board would vote to ask staff to look at potential monies, or that the staff would come to the September board meeting with some potential ideas, and then the board could vote? Because even in the September meeting, that will be before the September 30th
That's what I was just
decision.
thinking too, right?
well, so if I may, Madam Chair, I think it should be the former. I think that if, you know, not being presumptive, but if you were to favorably pass this out of committee and, you know, recommend that the board direct staff to find, that would be enough in the September meeting, so that by October, you know, because then we'll be closed, we'll know the carry forward balances, we'll have the discretionary funds. Then you could actually make a decision in October. So by then, we should know where things are at with Congress. I mean, it might be a quick turnaround because, I mean, we could probably plan that Congress will be up to 11:59 PM and 59 seconds on, you know, September 30th. I mean, that, you know, we could plan for that, but then I'm not sure when your meeting is in October. I know it's the first Thursday, but
7 and 8.
7 and 8. So, okay, you know, I mean, maybe I'd have to go to Chair Hymas and say, well, I need more time for backups or something, you know, but all we're trying to do is we have partners in this, right? It's not just us. It's not just the board. We're really trying to set conditions for. And so, it's
3.
Oh, 2 and 3, yeah, well, that's even.
You definitely want.
That would be a quick turnaround, but no, it's okay. So it's like, you know, if, not being presumptive, but if you were to pass this out favorably with language that would indicate that, you know, I don't know, for lack of a better term, there's a placeholder there. By that time, we will have closed, we'll know what balances are, and then we can make a, you know, a better recommendation on specifically if the board were to decide where the funding could come from, your discretionary account, another line item, those types of things too. So does that help?
Thank you. And again,
Yeah.
trying to be just totally open, saying this is what it is, this is what it looks like if we close it, this is what it looks like if we try to support it and move forward. And
I mean, Madam Chair, if I may, you've adopted a budget, you've done, I mean, we can't control what is or what is not going on in DC. And so all these things are factoring into, there'll be other grants that we might have to look at or do different, you know, actions. And then that will set conditions for us, you know, working with our legislature on whatever direction you tell us to take with them, you know, on that. So that's all we're trying to do is facilitate this in a transparent, meaningful way.
So I'll make a motion if
I have a question. Oh, process, right? So should the committee and ultimately the board choose option one, are we going to seek outside funding and have higher ed help fund this? Or does this all rest on the USB?
Right now, it would be a combination between USB and USHE.
So-
when you say outside funding, I just want to clarify, you mean?
Well, I
outside,
mean,
yes.
other interested entities, because this is a big burden for our agency to bear alone.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's,
what
you know, this is not something that only benefits, in fact, we don't benefit really at all. It's the student that benefits and higher ed that benefits.
When you say the student, wait, who's we?
You are, meaning USBE, I don't see, I mean, we facilitate the benefit. Right. But for us to fund all of this, I mean, I understand that the student benefits, and ultimately that's the taxpayer, but then higher ed benefits, but if we take on the burden of losing this money, that's not fair and sporting.
Correct, and again, that's why it's multiple agencies, we're having these conversations now to say, okay, if the funding goes away, what can the other organizations, agencies come together, come to bear and say, okay, this is what we can balance it out.
And the commissioner sent a letter committing that they would have their staff look and see what their options were financially.
So then I would just encourage us to add that to the motion so that there's clarity.
You wanted.
If we're gonna move option one, that you, I don't care if member Kelly moves it, I can move it. I just want to make certain that language is a part of that we're interfacing with people.
Why don't you move it if, are you okay with that? Why don't you move it if, so you can get it the way you want it?
I can move it. I move that the committee recommends that the board, no, that's not exactly what I should say. I move that the committee recommends to the board to direct staff to work with USHE to identify available funds. Example, carry forward balances, federal these funds or other funds to continue and complete the SLDS project. Is that? I guess can I comment on my motion?
Yes.
I think when I was asking that question, I was stuck on the last part of that, and maybe it's inherent in the original motion as drafted by staff that we're already collaborating.
We are, but
Because I was really stuck on identifying our funds,
Working with USHE.
but that kind of makes it inherent in the motion.
And should we say to potentially continue and complete SLDS projects? So we don't get into the same problem we got into this last meeting where it sounds like we are saying we want to continue it. Right now, we're just saying we need to know if we have monies to support continuing it if the board chooses.
I have no,
Have potential in there.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Chair, if I may, so if you do something potentially, I mean, there could be other changes, that occur even before the next meeting in September, right? And so it gives us the flexibility, or well, actually gives the board the flexibility to entertain your motion.
And still give
And
a
then
final
still,
say.
yeah, and then it might need to be amended or, something like that. But again, this is really about our really trying to be very transparent and ensuring that the board is directing all things financial and.
So I perceive this not being solidified until November board meeting, because next board meeting, they would say, staff, please look at possible scenarios to contribute. Then November, you'd bring those back to full board and we would say, yes, we want to do it, or no, we don't.
Because it's the 2nd and 3rd of October, your next meeting, it might be a time turnaround, not knowing what we don't know or will know at that time, from the federal government, so.
At least we'll know how much it's gonna cost to finish it, and if we have
Oh,
money
yeah,
to
yeah.
release. And then in November, we can decide if we wanna do it or not. Because you won't bring the numbers back until November. Because this board motion is just gonna have the board say, please go and find out if we have any monies available to contribute with USHE to keep this going.
But they would do that in September. And we could conceivably have that ready for your October meeting.
October 2nd and 3rd,
Right.
yeah, so that's not.
Oh, you're right.
You see what I'm saying? But you could be also right, though, in the sense that I don't know I don't wanna say that the board, well, no,
I was a month off.
ma'am, I was gonna say that.
Friday nights at 7. I'll be there. Yeah, I'm with you.
But the time, that's the challenge for anyone, but even for Yushi, right? They're gonna say, but we are completely closed yet. You know, they've gotta get their board to those things, so, you know, I mean, it could be things.
So-
Preferably, we don't be able to.
At a certain point, I mean, just sharing, you know, transparency, you say, no, I don't like this. And we can say, okay, the board's made that decision. If no funding comes from federal government, we'll shut it down.
Sure.
That's,
We should do that.
that is an option.
We get
Yeah.
what the numbers would look like.
Just,
So then,
it's, yeah, as long as we being the program team can communicate, especially with the vendor saying, here's the potential delay. Okay, let's just deal with that delay. I think we'll be fine.
okay.
I think this is me saying, I'm gonna be optimistic. I think we're fine.
We're always optimistic in finance. Member Vargas, do you want to make that again, just adding potential in there?
Oh, yeah, I would,
It's on the,
all the things, direct staff to work with USHE to identify available funds, for example, carry forward balances, federal lease funds to potentially continue and complete the SLDS project.
Thank you.
Yeah,
There's,
that's what I mean, what that says.
there's a motion on the floor to direct staff to work with USHE to identify available funds like carry forward balances, federal mineral lease funds to potentially continue and complete the SLDS project. I have a question about this motion, actually. Is it clear that we're having you look at available USBE funds? Because the way it's written sounds like you're working with USHE to look at available funds. USHE's a component that we're working with, but do we need to add to work with USHE and identify USBE available funds? So it's clear that it's both organizations' funds we're using.
That would, well.
I don't know if
specific-
you got
yeah.
that, but Member Bogus also put or other funds in the motion. I don't know if that,
Yes. It's on the,
Is it on there?
it's up there.
It's up there.
so after
Yeah.
federal mineral lease.
Very, very close.
You didn't read it, but it was there. When you were reading.
I don't know if that was your question, but.
I mean, as a staff officer, I would interpret that to mean that you are directing us to look at our funds.
Yes, I just think I'd add USBE.
Okay,
Can-
yeah,
The board directs have to work with USHE, comma, and to identify. To work with USHE to identify available funds and USBE available funds. So we're looking, does USHE have funds and does USBE have funds both?
What if we just said from both agencies?
Yeah, we can do that.
Right after available funds from both agencies.
Yeah.
Would that be,
I think that's fine. But just
without
that,
objection? Make the motion without objection?
is there any objection? Just out of curiosity, does USHE have like federal mineral lease monies and?
I don't,
Certainly they would have to-
I think so, but I don't know how much or, you know,
Okay,
that's an option. I can,
EG's not, EG's the one where you can have more, or is IE the one where you can have more? Cause one of those is,
EG is the one that's example, very specific.
okay. So EG means,
I think it's still correct.
EG means the list could go on if you
Yeah,
need
maybe
to.
this example
I am
impossible.
just slowly.
This isn't built.
You should explain that move over, man.
There is a motion on the floor that the committee recommends that the board direct staff to work with USHE to identify available funds from both agencies. E.g. carry forward balances, federal mineral lease funds or other funds to potentially continue and complete the SLDS project. Those in favor say aye. As opposed. I'm assuming USB is just understood in the motion.
Thank you.
So I do have a question.
Yes.
I think we need great context when this comes to the board. Otherwise, I think it will get lost in endless debate and confusion.
I think you're right.
And so, for example, it's not my job to direct you, but I think 3 slides that put something that otherwise I can almost see the conversation in my mind, and I think that would help us get to the finish line in a streamlined manner.
So visualization of the background,
Possibly.
up to where we're at right now.
Even say not long context,
Okay.
clear context,
Clear.
concise.
It's concise.
Clear.
Some, because even Yushi, some people I'm speculating, and I should not speculate, but I'm speculating that's something that people are gonna be like, hey, what's that? And what is this? And just
It spells out the acronym.
very, very clear. And this is what we're doing. We're going from the student through a universal application to higher ed in Utah, like just something super simple.
We could put the agreement in the backups too, so that you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would help us get through this agenda item in a very concise manner with 3 minutes from Director Bruff or whomever and get it to the finish line.
Thank you.
We have conferred and we think we will take a 5-minute break and then we only have 1 item left. Is that all right with everybody?
To this charter school revolving loan and.
That one's,
Middle break sounds great.
that one's pretty easy.
I agree.
2.9 will be pretty fast, so we'll see you. We'll start up at 11:05. Welcome back. Number 2.9, charter school revolving loan recommendations. School finance specialist Laura Wilson and Director Yuri.
No, Laura,
Okay.
come up here, so you don't get to sit in the back, so, yeah, so.
It's like sound a little, you sit right there, sound blocks the camera.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So school finance director Sam Uri, school finance specialist Laura Woodson. We had spring 2025 charter school revolving loan applicants were recently evaluated and approved by the charter school revolving loan committee, and the state charter school board recently recommended both of those applicants for a loan. We now come to the committee for your approval and then recommending forwarding that to the board for the final approval. Laura, any details on these 2 applicants that you want to share?
There is a lot of detail in the recommendations from the committees, and if you have questions about those, we'd be happy to talk about them. I don't know that it's probably worth our time for me to launch into a big thing about detail at this point, but.
I have a question if others don't. I'll follow you. Why don't you ask yours first, because oh, here, never mind, I found it. Well, my question is, the language used, it says uncertainty surrounding the Utah Fits All Scholarship and how it may impact appeal.
I'm sorry, where are you reading?
I'm in the agenda memo. Are we speaking in terms of appeal to the public? Or are we speaking in terms of appeal process?
Yeah, sure.
It's not a well-written sentence.
Those were comments from the charter school revolving loan committee. More generic about charter schools in general and just the climate of Utah Fits All being in existence, and whether or not this new charter school custom class would be able to enroll at the levels that they are expecting. So just referring to the committee's general consideration of the market conditions and things of that nature.
Can you review for the public who this committee is that you're referring to?
Yeah, Laura knows those.
So there are 3 members of the committee. One of them has historically been from the governor's office. That part of the statute was repealed, so that we're not required to have someone from the governor's office anymore. Jacob Wright was serving there during this recommendation. He has since taken another job. We have Gavin Hutchinson. I don't know if you know Gavin, he's been in the charter school space for a long time. He's worked a lot with finance in charter schools. And then our newest member is Brandon Johnson, Harvard Law School grad, who's at a law firm that also deals with financing in schools. So the idea of the committee is that they listened and they read these applications, they listen, and then they, with their expertise, ask questions, and then they sure they wrote a recommendation.
And the committee is legislatively directed, right?
No.
It was.
It was.
Um,
Oh, this is the one we continued.
We continued it in board rule 480.
Right, okay.
7748.
What about this, Jim? Well, I'm just wondering how many, and maybe it's here and I'm just not seeing it. How many private institutions are in Price, Utah?
This charter school, I believe, is under the umbrella of the school district in Price. Is that what we're-
August, are you referring to private schools or?
Well, it says, purpose for this loan is facility renovation for elementary students in Price, Utah.
So this charter school currently exists and has existed for like 18 years in Price, and they're in portables or trailers or something right now. Their high school is brick and mortar, but this is not. So Price offered them the opportunity to lease for like $1 a year a space that's already existing, that's a brick that needs to be turned into a school. And so this loan would partially fund the renovation to that space to make it possible for them to move. They would be like a couple of miles from where they are now. The people who run the charter school say that that's very advantageous because they're a really strong community resource. This charter school has like 14 counselors. They're trauma informed, like they have showers. They actually go and educate families on parenting to help students succeed. Like it's a very compelling work that they do.
So then I'm genuinely confused as to why they think the UFA scholarship is going to impact.
That's the previous. There's two.
Custom class is brand new. Pinnacle Canyon is.
How did I miss that?
Well, so can I?
Thank you. I'm
Through the, I mean, what they're, so school choice, right? There's concerns with additional programs being added on like with UFA, so charter schools will estimate how many students they need to enroll in order to break even or things. With additional programs such as UFA, that's all they're doing is they're saying, oh, you know, you might have counted on those kids enrolling in your school, but here's this UFA scholarship program, or Carson Smith, or, you know, those types of things that may actually take those students down. So then it becomes a you know, the committee, correct me if I'm wrong, looks at it like, hey, you know, there might be some risks here. That's all that they were discussing. That's all the piece to that is just, you know, before making a recommendation to do it, they just wanted to hear from the school on what is. Was that how it went, or?
Jacob Wright, I believe, was the one who made the comment from the governor's office, and he just was kind of saying, are we continuing to approve new charter schools at a time when the Utah Fits All Scholarship may be pulling kids away that might attend those type of schools? It was just kind of a comment that he made as they were deciding whether this loan would be a good risk.
Okay, we have Liz Van Tassel here from Utah Charter Association. Did you have a comment?
I think the appeal is maybe even a little more narrowly focused, which is that the district court has ruled that Utah Fits All violates the state constitution. That is under appeal. I think that is the appeal that they're referring to.
See, that was my first question.
Yeah,
okay.
The Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court is going to take that up. The legislature has.
Sir.
Okay.
But go ahead. Sorry, finish.
No,
If you're talking about the word that's on the agenda here, appeal, Jacob Wright was speaking to the appeal of new charter schools versus the Utah Fits All Scholarship. It was kind of just a comment that was made.
But Chair Ross is also right. This appeal applies to what Laura said. You know, so don't, but sorry, man.
Don't
I'm
let it
go. Yeah. Sorry.
So I do have another question about that. Cause that issue is for the top one, the bottom one seems like it's much more specified kind of a charter, but I have a question about the two. Oh, unless you have.
My concern is within even 3 to 5 miles, are there any co-ops, micro schools? Oh, so because Utah Fits All is either homeschool based or it's got a spider. And if there's nothing within it, most people who use it are not traveling 30 miles to go to school.
So are you referring to the Pinnacle Canyon?
I'm talking about custom class. Oh. Because if there's something that's geographically close in terms of private institutions, I can see why that would be a concern.
So as the discussion went on with the committee, what they came down to was the state charter school board has approved this school.
Yes.
And these are basically startup funds for the school. So the committee's role was just to say, do we feel that this $300,000 is a good risk? Will this school make it as a going concern? We kind of started going down the road of why are we approving so many new charter schools? And then we were like, not really our deal. State charter school board approved them. They are going to start. So.
Okay. I do have a question.
You know, just to clarify though, the custom class, it says here that this school is fully online, right?
Yes.
This is an online school. We're not talking about people.
Online charter.
Yeah, it's Pinnacle.
Where does it say that?
I'm on.
Backup slide.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on a different document than I
Yeah.
am. What is the name of it?
State charter school.
Mr. Van Tassel, let's comment, then I have a question.
Just a little more color around custom classroom. As you may be aware, the federal government last year awarded UAPCS a sizable competitive grant to help grow strong charter schools. The standards that we administer in deciding who gets one of those sub-grants are more stringent than what it takes to get a school or to open a school. We just completed the first competition for that, and they were one of 3 schools to receive one of those grants. And I offer that only given in the context of how likely are they to succeed, how likely is this loan to be repaid. I think that there is, having succeeded where others did not, we had some that we were unable to fund because they didn't meet minimum thresholds. They are in a better position than other schools which have been approved by the state charter school board.
How many applied, just out of curiosity?
7.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I thought it was interesting as well, just speaking to custom class in particular, their setup really, I think, is going to have broad appeal to homeschoolers because it's very much customized to what your student wants to do at their own pace. And maybe that's where the crossover came.
But it has a teacher teaching state core standards, presumably.
Yeah, but students have the ability to, it's not just, here's the curriculum, you have to fit into this box.
Yeah. Choice and voice, time and pace and place. Interesting. Okay, my question is
That was pretty artful what you just did.
Well, those are the
Yeah,
competency-based,
I know.
personalized learning pillars. So it sounds like they're looking at that as a different kind of a niche than maybe other online schools or something.
But I guess my question is, this is probably to the state charter board, but do you know why the risk level is listed as a medium for both of these schools? Because it seems to me that the one in Price would be low risk and the one in custom class would be high risk.
So they didn't want to say they were high. There's no huge red flag that says they're not gonna make it.
Not just with all the environmental considerations right now.
Right.
And because they're brand new and it's an unknown, that's always gonna be a higher risk than, for example, why is Pinnacle Canyon Academy considered medium when they're established LEA, they've been there for many years? Why aren't they considered a low?
Pinnacle Canyon, I think they're referring to the loan itself and the fact that there are a couple of conditions here where they need to, make sure with CPA, they have an existing USDA loan. You want to make sure that this loan doesn't interfere with the covenants that they've made with the USDA.
Okay.
And they also have to secure other funding. This $300,000 will go a long way, but not the full way to make the full renovation. So they've also got to secure additional funding from either the USDA or a local bank or credit union in order to fully complete the project. And I think that was the committee's reasoning for making this risk level medium. They're not saying Pinnacle Canyon itself is of medium risk, but
But even still, why? My understanding is that this 300,000 then would be contingent on these other three bullets. Is that not the case?
That is the case. We're also saying that the committee also recommended that we give them like $35,000 upfront to have an architect come in to tell them what their total cost of the project will be so that they can acquire additional funding. So there's a little bit of money that is more at risk upfront. But the other piece of this is that the enrollment currently at Pinnacle Canyon and all the schools in the Price area is declining. And so, and she said, this isn't necessarily that we can guarantee this is going to attract a lot more students. Pinnacle tends to have students come that have not succeeded in the traditional school. And she doesn't know that this will attract more students, but when we listen to it, I think as we were all sitting there listening to it, the need is so compelling that apparently there's a huge opioid problem in Price among the adults, like half. And so that makes it so the kids have trouble succeeding. So what she's saying is having a brick and mortar visible place where people can come, kids can come take a shower. It's a community center almost as well as the school. So the committee came out of that saying, maybe the finance part of me is just giving into my heart, but we feel like there's a strong need here.
Interesting. Thank you. Did you, Chairman, Ms.
Well, that was my question is why not just wait another year? But you're saying, if I'm hearing correctly, emotions are getting in the way.
Yeah, there's just, I don't know if perhaps in a year, Price would have done something else with that building, or if they would allow them to wait a year, the city of Price. I don't know what that situation is.
It says in not your personal notes here, but in yours, a whole notes. That adding to their existing debt will violate current debt covenants. The USDA, your current loan should be paid off in 1 year. So naturally I thought, well, why not just wait a year? You're saying they went from 2 deaths per year. Last year they had 8 in the community. And is there a new projection? I mean, it's not gonna solve the opioid problem. You're just giving a place, not you, they are giving a place for students to go after. Maybe I'm missing something.
So it's just a new location for the existing school. It is a daytime school that also goes and teaches the families. We weren't for certain that their debt covenants are going to be. It's impossible. They have, what's recommended is that they check with their CPA and be sure that they are within current debt covenants with their.
Can we make these contingent? Can we give the 36,000 to see what we're looking at by what we need and then make the rest contingent based on some of these other factors?
Well, the contingency is in the bullet points.
But it's not worded that way.
Well, it says number 2 says that they should
But
reach out to their CPA to discuss debt covenants. I'm on so if you go back to the agenda one.
behind.
And then get the bottom one. No, that was it.
Oh, was that it? Oh.
The bottom one. And then scroll.
I'm just saying the wording in the motion.
And I don't know if the words are the same as these numbers. So, I mean, it's kind of in there as well, right? You're saying that the LEA should reach out to their CPA or auditor to discuss debt covenants and reach out to USDA to have all their covenants changed or potentially waived for a year if necessary.
this just says taking it into consideration, it's recommending that 300,000. So do we need to add the language to the motion? is
Well,
what I'm asking.
that's why I'm wondering. I want to help a community as much as I can, right? But I don't want to also hurt them by bringing them in situations where, you know, the citizens violate current.
Actually, it is there, subject to, I don't know.
It's
how to see
subject
that
to
word,
it.
subject to, so let's.
So it should
Any other questions before I make a motion?
Through the UCSF,
Anyone want to make the motion?
but we're trying to.
I believe separate motions or.
If someone wants to divide, or we can make them together. Let's make them separate.
Yeah, I think we should make them separate too.
Okay. You want to do that?
Sure. Committee recommends that the board approve the following charter school revolving loan awards. And we'll just say award, not plural. Custom class approval of $300,000 loan.
There's a motion on the floor that the committee recommends that the board approve the following charter school revolving loan award, custom class approval of a $300,000 loan. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just opposed? Me.
And I'll also make the motion that the committee recommends that the board approve the following charter school revolving loan awards. Pinnacle Canyon Academy, conditional approval of a $300,000 loan, subject to the following conditions. Immediate release of $36,000 for architectural planning. Confirmation of secured funding for the remaining project costs prior to major disbursement. Consultation with a certified public accountant and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ensure compliance with applicable debt covenants.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the committee recommends that the board approve the following charter school revolving loan award for Pinnacle Academy, conditional approval of a $300,000 loan, subject to the following conditions. Immediate release of $36,000 for architectural planning, confirmation of secured funding for the remaining project costs prior to major disbursement, and consultation with a certified public accountant and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ensure compliance with applicable debt covenants. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Before we move on to the last action item here, this might be a question for Mr. Van Tassel, but have you in your meetings or are all charters aware that we raised the limit of this from 300,000 to 500,000? Because I think it's ironic that these two both are 300,000.
I think the answer to that is no.
That's because it wasn't approved at the time that they applied.
Oh, because this was.
I just checked with Ben Rasmussen and Karen, I think it became effective August 7th. And so Pinnacle, for instance, may want more of this money, but they would have to apply for an additional $200,000 loan.
Okay. I'm assuming you're the go-to. Can you let people know?
We'll have a meeting on Monday. I'll make sure people are aware.
We did that because the thought was more folks would access this because you could do a little more. It's.
If Pinnacle's.
Well, there was actually some legislation last year that, for kind of silly reasons, got abandoned, but it was designed recognizing that $300,000 or even $500,000 doesn't go very far, and trying to say let's make that make those loans capable of being useful. And so the request last year was for $50 million to be then dispersed and be part of the debt stack that a school could use under a variety of conditions. I believe that legislation is going to go forward this year. It'll be one-time money, but obviously because it's a revolving loan fund, it would go over time.
A couple of months ago, I think, changed this from 3 to 5 here in the board. So
I will make sure that the work gets out.
okay, let's look at 2.10. Action letter to the Federal Department of Education. Staff lead, Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Scott Jones.
Yes, Madam Chair. So we've touched on this related to other agenda items. So if we go back to initial proposals or for letters that were made by board members in the, I believe it was the April meeting, Now we've progressed towards where we're at right now, where it's coming through committee with some revisions because there's been so much change between April and now. There's still opportunity for a letter to go to our congressional delegation. So staff were asked to draft a letter along that line, stemming from early on where board members, three or more board members had asked for that process to take place, and that's where we're at here today. So in summary.
Okay. Members.
I'm gonna ask Cole to kind of speak to this, because if I'm honest with you, I don't see the federal government has moved so fast. I'm struggling to see a need for this, right? And I know that the letter was coming to us, and then it was changed because I mean, I know you follow what I'm saying, and I'm not getting it out for the public very well, but sure, if you could just speak to that, because I'm not convinced that this is gonna do it.
Yeah. Let me really just kind of speak to it. You guys have probably heard me say this before, that I think it's important for us to act rather than to be acted upon. What I'm seeing happen, and Scott and I have been in regular communication concerning this letter, and I appreciate staff and Scott's work on this letter, but the purpose and what I think I'm hoping to achieve with this is that the state of Utah, we can start to take more of a lead and take the front seat in terms of saying, look, we have industry experts right here at the USBE that will do a much better job of serving our students than bureaucrats in DC. And so when it comes to the title programs, when it comes to Title I, Title II, Title III, we've got industry experts like Leah Voorhees that that recognizes that there's a movement, a potential movement at the federal level to eliminate the Department of Education. And so let's allow our industry experts to take the lead on saying, in the state of Utah, we're going to continue to follow federal law. We're going to continue to follow Title I. We're going to continue to follow Title II. But here in Utah is how we're going to fulfill those requirements of Title I and all the other title programs. The recommendation is to, be in communication with our federal delegation, to be in communication with our state legislature, with Speaker Schultz, with Senator Adams, in terms of saying, look, in Utah, we're ready and willing to lead out in terms of making sure that we fulfill federal obligations, but that we're doing it and that we are executing it at the state level. And so that's my goal, and you're not wrong, Chair Hymas, in that. And again, Scott and I have talked about this. There's going to be significant changes between today's committee meeting and board meeting in September, right? And so there's likely to be, a few more drafts potentially in terms of keeping up with those changes. But the goal and my hope is that we are sending the message to our delegation, our federal representatives, Representative Owens, Senator Curtis, Senator Lee, Representative Moore, et cetera, that the state of Utah and the USBE is ready and willing to lead out in terms of fulfilling federal law, but fulfilling and finding the best way to do that at the state level and meeting the needs of Utah students. So yeah.
That's. 'Cause, 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 position, you know, staff, we don't take positions, we're unbiased and we do it. That way, it's about process, right? And then keeping in mind what board member Kelly just articulated is it's highly probable that we won't know exactly how much public education is going to get funded and how they're going to disperse that money, or if any changes will occur to the SLA till later in September. I mean, you know, proposals are being made. Earlier, we mentioned about the Senate Appropriations Committee. Yes, it's true. They did pretty much reject all of the president's proposals, including the K-12 simplified funding program. However, none of our Utah delegation is on the Senate Appropriations Committee. So that proposal will have to go to the full body of the Senate, back to the House, or, you know, vice versa. So I think what board member Kelly is saying is that, you know, it might be a value add to send this letter to the congressional delegation, as they are, you know, our senators are on the Senate floor, but then our representatives are over on the House floor, and that could be going back and forth, and it might be a value add to, again, no position, just about process. It might be a value add to let them know what the board's recommendation is to them to, you know, follow along that line. I'm already hearing from colleagues in other states that they wish that, great, the Senate Appropriations Committee had proposed appropriating funding for education, and there were some increases above what the president had proposed, but that they do support the K-12 simplified funding program for that money. I think a lot of times people think that, well, it's the K-12 simplified funding program, that you think, well, that was just a proposal of the president. You could conceivably still do the K-12 simplified funding program with increases to education dollars, right? I mean, that's just the distribution, but then we get into the whole aspect of, well, but then we still go home with the laws unless Congress changes the laws. They're the only ones that have the authority to do that. And then, you know, or if they don't, then to make it clear that we'd like to be open to supporting any waivers. Doesn't mean we're going to file waivers, but that we do it. That's the context, I think, of the letter too. Does that help, Board Kelly? So again, not a staff position or thing, but just clarity on the process related to this proposed letter going forward to Congress or our congressional delegation.
So within this letter here, great job, the team. Within this letter here, it has, and again, part of my concern, like I don't have a problem going to our representatives or senators and saying, hey, let us do our thing, right? This is state sovereignty, right? But this talks about ESSA. Does that need to be specifically brought up? That's what I'm saying. How do we generalize this to say, whatever you do before we can even hit send on the keyboard, right? How does this say, it doesn't matter when I send this, Utah wants sovereignty. We want you to stay in your lane. How do we do that? So again, this mentions ESSA. This says it has the big beautiful bill in it. And it might just have those two things, right? It has the bullet points. Yeah. So K-12 simplified funding program. I agree with all these things. I just don't know if one, I don't want it to be limited, and two, I want it to be ongoing. If we are to send something.
So my concern is that as Superintendent Molly articulated yesterday, things are changing, and they could change overnight. We don't know what the change. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what the processes are. What we do know is what our students need and what we have needed in recent years. I feel that we're in a pretty strong position with the team that we have at USBE, with our administrators across the state, both charter and regular LEAs. We, you know, no matter what they throw us, we're gonna figure something out because we're not going into this blind. We know our students, we know our limitations, we know where our problem areas are, we know where we've been underfunded. We know what needs to happen to get public education to continue to move forward in the ways that we feel that it needs to be moving forward. So I would like this expression in a letter to be an expression of confidence. And I don't want to be puffed up or pompous, but we have the Scott Joneses and the Leah Voorheeses and the team of and the Molly Harts and the people who have been considering the data, have been making it work under less than perfect circumstances for decades, and throw us some curveballs. We're gonna figure it out because we're committed. We're that committed to our students and to our faculty and to our administrators. So I would love to not only communicate to our federal delegation, but to our state, Schultz and Adams team, that we have been put in place and the team has been put in place to handle this. And you've got folks that have been voted in to take responsibility to continue to make decisions that will help us deal with whatever problems come our way. And we are the folks that ought to be at least consulted when we're making decisions to say that we support whatever was that we said we supported in the letter. Well, we support what they might have been saying right now, but what are they really saying and how is it gonna be twisted and changed before it finally lands a little bit later on? What we ought to be saying is, we feel confident that in order to provide this and this and this and this for students, that we have an understanding of how to do that. And we appreciate the opportunity to collaborate and to provide valuable insight and valuable information as they are making decisions, because to be real honest, at the state level, we can talk. You guys, leadership, everybody can go talk, and then frequently they'll do what they're gonna do. Ignoring the people that have been in place, that are dealing with the day-to-day challenges of educating our citizenry. We just need to be optimistic and proactive and let them know, hey, we're working. We've made this work no matter what kind of, we're not gonna say this, but no matter what kind of curveballs you've thrown us, we've still made it work. It's been difficult, let's be honest, at times, because we basically have a mission to do, and then when you decide that you're gonna do it in a different way, and we're trying to figure out how do we do it in your way, that may not be the very best way for kids based on real life data and information and experience and best practice. But we're gonna make it happen and we're gonna continue to make it happen. So let's talk, let's collaborate, we are eager to support you in your legislative role in making the laws and figuring out how the funds are going to be administered so that we can meet the needs of these students. But to say that we support what you're doing right now, because we don't know what they're doing, is kind of a scary thing for me, because I'm not sure. Maybe we support.
I have a question about what they are doing. I mean, this says it supports the big beautiful bill, but we get 600 million federal funding, right?
667, I think.
Six
It's what we're
sixty-seven.
estimating that we'll get. I mean,
And,
2/3 of which is CNP money.
but I didn't is there really, is there really a provision in the big beautiful bill that that's gonna phase away over 10 years? And if it is, and all that money is gonna go away, are we saying,
I don't remember seeing that in the
I
big.
thought someone
Big beautiful
sent
bill.
me
No.
that there's a plan to phase it out over 10 years?
I don't remember seeing that.
It's gonna
in
come back.
H1, but
Fully, it reinstated the 2026, 2025 and 2026, but it, well, DOE restated 2025. Big
Right.
beautiful bill reinstated 2026, but there's a 10-year phase out.
I don't remember seeing that in there. I'm not saying it's not in there, but.
How do we, can we find that, can someone find that out for us?
Yes.
Maybe they're AAGs or someone.
Well, yeah, Scott's looking at, I do want to respond to, board member Booth in terms of saying that, I have reached out to, Representative Schultz. And he has talked to us about having his chief of staff, her name's Abby, I'm sorry, I don't know Abby's last name, but Abby is going to be involved in collaborating with us, right? I have not reached out to Senator Adams as of yet. I hope to, but this is the collaboration part of what you're talking about, I think is what the purpose of this is I think as a state board, we've got to win the confidence of our state legislature that we are the leaders in education and that we are asking them to allow us to lead out on these issues. And if we can win that confidence, I think it will go a long ways towards asking them to say, let us lead out on this rather than you telling us what to do, let us tell you what to do. Optimistic thinking, I recognize that, but I think that the leaders in education in terms of knowing what's best for our students and how best to serve our students is in this room and in this building. And so I think that we can go a long ways towards winning the confidence of not just our federal delegation, but a lot of our state agencies and state leaders. So.
And I just want to point out that Chair Hymas and our board leadership do meet regularly with Abby and Speaker Schultz and President Adams, or at least over the years, our leadership with the superintendency has met with them. When I say regularly, I mean, not every month, but, a couple times a year.
Trying.
Did you have questions? I had one more question.
Well, I've got a few comments, I think. One is, are we prepared to repeal our ESSA plan? Because multiple facets of this letter is in direct contravention to our ESSA plan that we kind of gave the thumbs up to. And so if we're in contravention to our ESSA plan, we've got huge issues. Secondly, we're making claims that we really shouldn't be making because we don't have the data to support them. And I think if we even begin to move forward with this, we should take out our unsubstantiated claims at the very least. I have a few more concerns, but those I think are the two big ones. I don't think that it's truthful to state that we have students leaving public ed for the voucher program, because the last numbers I had said that our public school enrollment was actually trending steady. And unless we have data that contradicts that, I think we need to clarify that and make certain that we're on up and up there.
So, just for clarity through the chair, is there? I don't know that we said that we were losing kids on school choice or in the letter.
It was in one of the comments, not in the letter.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I do think the question, I had a similar question to Member Bogus. We don't have any data to show that if we, that we're going to improve student outcomes and advance school choice. And ensuring continued services for students with disabilities is a given, but that wasn't my big question was, is the waiver, we've been told right now we can get a waiver. Is that in the big bill or is that from the DOE now only?
It's from the Department of Education that came out on July 29th. So where we're in now is the space of what's being administratively told to states that they can do. But then it, again, as I said earlier, any change to the ESSA laws would have to be congressional, right? Would have to be done that way, which would trickle down or cascade into our plan, right? So now if no changes are made to the laws, but it is a simplified funding model in that it becomes a block grant, right? Well, if what all the letter is trying to say is, well, we don't know what we don't know. So if there are no changes to the law, then we would appreciate you as our congressional delegation supporting any waiver requests we may in the future. Doesn't mean we will, but you know, that's really all it's saying is that too, because again, it's a timing issue. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know if between this date time group we're in right now in August and September 30th, if as part of all of the things that are going on in DC with it, there will be proposals to amend the ESSA laws to support or what would be construed as supporting more state autonomy from federal regulation, right? However, in other meetings that's going on, even with staff from the congressional delegations, I think, and I'm just, this is just me speaking, and hopefully I don't offend anybody on this. Our elected officials, while we all want to see specificity in the law, Congress is not going to debate or put into the law that you shall not provide education funds to students that are undocumented, right? They're not going to do that. They're just, I mean, it's not, you know, they might talk about it or they might do it, but to get to that level of specificity, which a lot of people want, which a lot of states want, right? So it's a fine line between granting autonomy and sovereignty and then dictating specifically what you should and shouldn't do with the funding, right? So what happens is we get letters from the administration respectfully that say, don't spend this money on undocumented students. That came out in one of the title letters, right? So then it comes to where board member Carey is saying, well, then what do we turn around and say or do with our schools, right? Do we change the rule to say that we do it? And so then it comes into this aspect of, well, maybe be careful what you ask for, because if you want sovereignty and autonomy, then you are going to have to decide the policy on using those funds. We want to say, don't tell us the how, right? Give us the 5 W's, Utah, grant money in a block grant, the what, right? Where, Utah, the what, where, when, for federal fiscal year, such as that. And why is for K through 12 education. But sovereignty to a lot of people is, don't tell me how to spend the money, right? Let me decide how to do it. Yes, I'll continue to provide IDEA. Yes, I'll do those types of things. And I think that's really what the letter is trying to say is, again, not about process, about considering all of the facts and assumptions. We have to make assumptions too, because we're assuming that, there'll be a budget passed and that there will all be these proposals, but I think the letter is just basically saying is accounting for the fact that, well, we don't know what we don't know, but should this occur or not occur, like i.e. changes to the law, then, we would appreciate your support in granting or helping grant waivers to the law if it's not changed, so that we can have that sovereignty of the state deciding how to do it. Of course, we're going to follow the laws. Of course, we're going to do those types of things too. But does that help, or did I take us off on a whole different thing? And
no, it does. And I'll say, when we weren't going to get our money that was congressionally appropriated, I was like, we better send a letter like tomorrow
I don't feel an urgency at this point because that money was reinstated and the 2026 money was reinstated. But I do support thanking any congressional leaders or Department of Ed for sending that money. I do support asking if we decide to do a waiver, I do support sending a waiver in and asking our congressional supporters or congressional folks to support any waiver we potentially would request. But I really would like and need to know if we are looking at a 10-year phase out of funds in the big beautiful bill. I can't support that. I would support clarity between the Department of Ed and the congressionally voted laws moving forward in the future. And I would support what Randy's saying, saying, let's work together. I think we probably could do that with or without a letter. It's just the timing now is all skew-wise.
And to speak to the timing of it, we started the first draft of this letter, if you will, was written before those funds were released, right? The funds were released, we made some edits to it as a result of that. We know there's going to be changes as we move forward, and I think the timing of it, I think, well, it was, I don't remember which member of leadership, I think it was probably Leanne that I talked to that said, as a result of those funds being released, we think it's appropriate to send this to committee first, which I fully support, understood that, agree with that. Because what that's going to allow us to do now is to give us time to if we can send this to the full board in September board meeting, it gives us time to see what changes are going to happen, but it also allows us the opportunity before that September 30th deadline to say to our federal delegation, hey, as you're voting on this, this is the will of our board. These are the things that we would like to see, for our students in Utah. So.
Okay, what do you want to do, committee?
So I'll make a motion. If you're ready for a motion.
Okay.
So, I move that the committee, that the board directs staff to send the letter to the Utah congressional delegation, the Speaker of the House of the Utah Legislature, the President of the Senate of the Utah Legislature, and or the Governor of Utah.
There's a motion on the floor that says the board directs staff to send the letter to the Utah congressional delegation, the Speaker of the House of the Utah Legislature, the President of the Senate of the Utah Legislature, and or the Governor of Utah.
So was that a letter or the letter?
The letter.
This letter.
This letter. Yeah.
Then I'll meant to say a letter, because I think there's, I think, or should we, I'm just trying to, I would want whatever letter it is to go before the full board. I anticipate because of the changes that there will be a draft or two more based on changes that take place.
If you change the to do you want to add what the letter will be about?
Sure.
So you're not saying to send this letter to the board?
A version of this letter, I would say.
So this is over, by the way.
So
why? So we want this to happen sometime in the.
Well, let me say this also.
Sure.
If this committee does not vote to move it forward, if it does vote to move the letter forward, this letter goes forward to the board for consideration. If it votes not to move the letter forward, am I correct in my understanding that this still is in backup
And it will say no motion for the board on the agenda, but then any board member can bring an alternate letter while the agenda item is up and say, I move to go back and do this letter, or I move this new letter draft that's in backup.
Oh, I don't know.
Typically, but if it's on an agenda item and it was an action in this committee, they can override what we do in committee.
That's a great question. You know.
I can answer that question. That's typically how it's done.
Okay, yeah.
As long as,
And when I say typically, that's typically how this board has.
as long as it's friendly.
Yes, well, that's what we've done in the
I will
past,
tell you,
just
there's no
making
such
sure that's accurate. I mean, that is, we've done it multiple times where a committee said, I don't know. But then this
Okay.
still goes out and then the board actually undoes what the committee does and says, yeah, we do want this letter to go out because A, B, and C. Or, well, I didn't want this letter, but I brought my own letter. I want this idea of a letter. So there might be some collaborative efforts in between there or something. I don't know.
Well, isn't that what happened in April though? Cause when we got to the board meeting in April, there were 3 different versions of that letter at the time. Right, so you're saying that if the committee doesn't take any action and we put in the, on the red thing, no motion made or whatever, I'm not sure what the language is there.
Yeah.
You're saying that between now and the next board meeting, through the chair, they could revise that letter, they could add their own letter, they could do, okay. But then it wouldn't have flown through, then it would have,
Well, then people know that the committee vetted the idea and they voted no motion for the board. So people would have to go out and override the committee. That's how it's been done in the past. I mean, most people just will trust whatever the committee did, but sometimes they don't because things change or we're in flux or there's. Okay, any last thoughts before we put this motion out on the board with an or a the or what? If it's an we probably need to know what the content is going to be, the
Plus,
topic.
if we do you're saying, if we do somebody can come with a different draft.
If the bid committee votes no, yes or no, they can still bring a different draft because it's still on the agenda.
Okay.
They would just know that the committee didn't necessarily want to move forward this letter.
That's fair. That's fine. I'll stay with that motion then.
Okay, with the or an
With the. Yeah.
okay. There's a motion on the floor that the board directs staff to send the letter to the the Utah Congressional Delegation, the Speaker of the House of the Utah Legislature, the President of the Senate of Utah Legislature, and or the Governor of Utah. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those opposed?
No.
No.
Aye. Yeah. Oh, no.
I was like, I almost said.
We don't, you don't say no very often, so.
I say me all day.
Okay, so that motion fails with Member Kelly voting yes. And then it's gonna be on the agenda, so based on this conversation, someone could resurrect this in the full board, or they take the pieces of this and do something they're more comfortable in. Sounds like.
I'm not voting against sending a letter, but I am voting against, I feel that there needs to be adjustments
Right.
to the letter
That's
as
what I
it
heard you say.
currently stands. Is that okay?
Well, and I think if we're going to go into places of conflict with our ESSA plan, we need to have a motion for the board to redact or retract that and amend it.
Totally agree.
We can't send a
We
letter
have to at least know.
that is in conflict with our ESSA
We
plan.
have to review what is in the ESSA plan. And that's why I had asked if we could do that on the study session today, just get a quick review on what is in it, but maybe someone sends it out to the board, maybe we need a new motion. Is our ESSA plan in backup right now? I
don't believe so.
Do we need another motion to the board to?
I think they could just send that,
ESSA plan out?
I think they can just send that to us, period. It's somewhere in our backup, somewhere in the past few months. So we don't.
Because
I
reviewed it.
have to send it to the. When I was looking at this letter, so somewhere it's in there, but I can't remember. I had to search quite a bit to find it, but I think you could just email it
Do you
to
want
us.
us to move to ask staff to send that out to board members for review, or do you want?
Do we
To
have
just
move
ask.
To it, or do we say, hey, Scott? here?
I think we just ask if that's okay.
Yeah, you don't have to do a motion.
Nobody's gonna be upset for sharing the USB.
If we make that motion, would it be on the agenda in the next board meeting? It's not on this agenda, but if we made a motion to review it, would it be on the agenda to review it in our next board meeting?
Oh, so you're saying not just review it in email, but have an agenda item. It's actually a pretty good idea.
Well, it depends on how much time to review an ESSA plan and then start to amend it. You're talking a really big deal.
Just an agenda item.
But the motion coming out of the board could be, hey, we've looked at this. We're no longer reconciling this with our desires. We're gonna move in a different direction, and then a motion could be made before the full board then. So your idea actually has merit, should it be the will of the board to change that ESSA plan. But just to review it, you would have to publicly notice it differently. So how you make that motion and what you do with it will depend on what the board can do with it as it is noticed to the public.
And Sherheimus has a comment.
I'm thinking procedurally, when we get things on the agenda, it's typically, right, your 3 board members.
Or a committee.
Or a committee, however, usually something has to be actionable on a public agenda before you take action on it. So I don't know if
Yes.
voting to,
Unless we're going to ask to have it put on the agenda for an action item, or are we going to ask to have it put on for a study session agenda item?
So you could take action on a study assessment agenda item.
If you agendize it as action.
Not always. So the Sharps survey letter and the removal of the board support is the perfect example. It was on there as an information item, and then the board took action to remove their support.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You'd have to agendize it as an action item, not an information.
So
item.
it was an information item and they took action.
That should not have happened.
Okay.
It's not okay.
So then, we could make a motion, Cole, if it's something that you choose to do, that we move that we direct staff to bring the ESSA plan forward for review and possible action. So that it's agendized correctly. Should we want to take action and reconcile the statements in your letter with our ESSA plan, but right now your letter's not. It's not reconciling.
I understand that, and that's something that I think you're the one that has helped me understand ESSA and understand a little more in terms of, how they do need to be in alignment with each other. Would you be willing to make that motion?
Oh, yeah, I would be happy to say, do
you have a comment beforehand?
I don't know, maybe I'm way off here. Nothing has been brought to the public on any sort of action item that is just brought up in the moment here. Right, so we're making a motion to take action.
Yeah, you're talking procedurally, and I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
We're thinking we can make that because this letter is regarding our ESSA plan to a large extent. But you're saying that's too much of a stretch because we didn't agendize a reconsideration of the ESSA plan here.
Yeah, I don't know, and again, I could be wrong, but pulling things off of a letter and saying, yes,
Okay,
that's been agendized.
let's do this.
That's what my concern.
I understand. I totally understand procedurally, but can we ask that you send the ESSA plan out to board members to review via email? And then 3 board members can get together and request to board leadership via form to review or reconsider, or however you want to do the language.
If we want to get that out, and then board leadership can make a recommendation, say, we want this as the study session. Again, no action. Study session is where we can just pound out, ask questions, get to know it, right? We review it and then study it.
I think we want review and possible action.
I mean, they may want more than review, but I mean, I see it's too much of a stretch to do that via what was agendized for today.
I believe so.
Okay, we're 15 minutes over, but totally understanding. Well, I kept seeing your face get.
No, it's fine. I just
Yeah.
explained the big process.
Um,
I'm gonna do whatever.
I understand the problem. So I would disagree with Chair Hymas. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to make that motion because you have to agendize final decision making. If we're making a motion to say, hey, let's bring this before the board, we're doing nothing more than doing the board member request thing on the public record right here in a committee meeting. We're just saying, hey, we agree collectively as a committee that we want this to come before the board. That's literally all we're doing. We're just making that public, and the fact that, you know, we're not making any decisions other than we want this to come forward for review. And the agendizing comes in terms of the final decision making.
And I think it's in the middle of these two, because I think we typically do that when we direct staff, but if it's a motion for the board,
We're not making a motion for the board, we're making a motion to bring forward ESSA for review and reflection.
but not back to our committee, to the board, and we didn't agendize that here.
But we can make it to come back here. And it would put us at another 30 days. It would put us at another 30 days here.
But it was right, and you'd actually have the work to be put forth. Like I said, I'm not the chair of this committee. You know, I'm just.
What do you wanna do? You wanna make that to come back here, or do you wanna have 3 members ask for it to go to the full board?
Well, if they won't put it before the full board, it's a violation of our bylaws.
Well, what do you want it, do you want it to come to committee and make that right now? Or do you wanna have 3 members ask for it to go to the full board without going through committee for review first, the ESSA plan?
So our bylaws dictate that it has to go through committee, so it doesn't matter which way we do it.
Sure.
They can agendize the full board.
Yeah, so, and we have, so I strongly recommend, and I know we're over time, that you hear from Assistant Superintendent Nielsen on the ESSA plan. So it'll be value add because they're the programmatically, so
Please add value to us.
he always does. He
So,
always-
so,
Then we're gonna have a hard stop in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
correct. So interestingly, the Standards Assessment Committee just heard a request to make an amendment to Utah's ESSA plan. I left before that was done, but I assume it's going forward and the full board will discuss that next month. That's related to how we identify and monitor the growth of our students learning English. It's the primary element of that amendment, which is part of the legal process for states customizing their plan. So that item will be on the agenda next month, this amendment to the ESSA plan. The board has amended the ESSA plan, which was originally submitted to the U.S. Department of Education in 2017. There's been several amendments that the Board of Education Utah has made to address issues where they feel like they need to make changes to really customize. So this plan, this amendment is related to those multilingual students again, and we've been working on it with the field and our Assessment Accountability Policy Advisory Committee for about a year and a half, analyzing Utah student data and so forth. So that's in place. So I don't want you to be blindsided when you see an ESSA agenda.
be helpful procedurally, if that is on the agenda, I assume the full plan will be in backup already for that piece of agenda. Is it going to be appropriate procedurally to have a member make a motion to ask for a waiver for portions of it during that agenda item, or to reconsider it altogether? And also, will we have opportunities to seek information about data? Is it working? Is it not? What is the ROI on that?
So the ESSA plan's 122 pages. I sent the link to Kemi. It's posted on our website. So it contains a lot of components that are also in state law, right? So let's take an assessment. There's a federal requirement to administer assessments to students, and we also have several state laws that align or coincide with that as well. So to say, get rid of the ESSA plan, that's a massive, right? And I think you're sensing that that's a big lift in process. So there was some discussion with leadership, should potential for a waiver or waivers go forward at the same time as amendment. My position is that the amendment, the ESSA plan is state law or federal law. The amendment's a process to customize it and address state needs, that could go forward. The board should consider that work that the field has been put in place for this. While concurrently, you could consider waivers or a waiver depending on what needs you have. So the letter that the US Department of Ed sent out, there's some key elements for submitting a waiver. Number one, identify the federal program or programs you're gonna waive, you're requesting to waive. But the big one is describe how your waiver will advance student academic achievement. So any state that submits a waiver, you've got to have the work done to say, what is this? What's the promise that this waiver is going to have? Somebody in here mentioned that in the letter, you know, this advanced school choice, improved student outcomes. Do we have data that shows this efforts in this letter would achieve that? That's part of a waiver or waivers that states have to submit. You have to have a plan of, this is why we think you allowing us to not comply with this federal requirement is going to be good for our students.
Which is why in the letter, it was saying to the congressional delegation, if we decide to file a waiver, as if it comes through standards assessment, the board approves it, we would share that with the congressional delegation, and then they would have at least situational awareness that you had made that, the board had made that.
They don't, from what a question I asked earlier, if it's the DOE or in Congress, they are not gonna be the ones that approve the waiver, it's going to be DOE
Well, right, but if DOE goes away and we don't know where,
or OMB, sorry.
well, yes, but but that's the challenge right now is we don't know who, you know, right now we're gonna submit so the question for you, for Darren, do amendment and waiver mean the same thing?
No.
No, right? So then you have to have another mechanism with waiver requests, since we don't know when or who we would submit the waiver to. I mean, right now, it would go to the Department of Ed, right? But in 2 or 3 years from now, because remember, when we get federal funding, it's not, the period of availability is usually over 2 years, right? So if you were trying to, if the state needs to do, that's all that the letter was trying to say was, well, should the need arise, you know, please look at helping us with the waiver too, because we don't know who those will go to 2, 3, 4 years from now. So anyway, yeah, so just food for thought.
So it's on the agenda for next, is that what I'm hearing, Karen?
Yeah, the amendment.
You can schedule about 4 hours for that meeting. And typically motions could be brought under S&A or finance. Yeah. Yeah, so we
So we
can,
have this here, but we have the other one.
so we can,
S&A.
yeah, we can make a motion about the S plan when they bring it back.
Once it's on the agenda.
This has always been a debate, we have to end, but just food for thought is if it's just the amendment that's on the agenda, can you open up the whole thing for further amendments? It has been a debate over years. So Robert's rules says yes, and our bylaws do not conflict with that. Technically, Robert's rules says when we bring our bylaws, Article 4, all of our bylaws are open. And so until we write into our bylaws that only that which is agendized, that has to be in our bylaws. Otherwise, Robert's rule says technically it's all open. That would be interesting because if you're only bringing one bylaw and then, well, I'm not saying I think that should happen. What I'm saying is what Robert's rule says.
It could. Well, sometimes Robert's rules doesn't win.
The board chair can over. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.